Okay, good morning and welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started with our meetings this morning. We actually have a few meetings that we get to work through this morning. The first meeting of the morning is our Board of Trustees for Utah County Service Area Number 7. We will open this meeting with a public hearing. And at this point, I would declare the public hearing open to discuss the 2019 budget for the Utah County Service Area Number 7. Seeing no public wishing to comment, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing.
A motion to adjourn?
Or
Or to, well, I shouldn't adjourn. A motion, sorry. That was a quick meeting.
that was really fast.
I'll make a motion that we adopt
We gotta
the
close
resolution.
hearing.
The public hearing.
Oh, close, oh, sorry. I've got so many things on my mind right now. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a
Finally
second
got there.
to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. Now we will consider the motion
Okay,
item, that is to adopt the resolution adopting the 2019 budget for Utah County Service Area Number 7. Are there any questions on the budget?
No.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we adopt a resolution adopting the 2019 budget for Utah County Service Area Number 7, and customary that number is $939,397.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to adopt regular agenda item number 1. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion will carry 3-0. Now, Bill, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. And it's good we can have fun, right? And that's all we do. Okay, we are now going to open our Board of Trustees of Utah County Service Area Number 8 meeting. We have, the first item on our agenda today is to open a public hearing to discuss the 2019 budget for Utah County Service Area Number 8. At this point, I'll declare the public hearing open. Are there any members of the public who'd wish to address the budget for Service Area Number 8? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. Next, I have our regular agenda item to adopt a resolution adopting the 2019 budget for the Utah County Service Area Number 8. Are there any questions on the budget?
No.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that
I'll
we.
make a motion that we.
Oh, do you have the number?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution adopting the 2019 budget for the service area number 8. The revenues are $1,699,000 and $1,699,969, and the revenues are the expenses are the same.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt regular agenda item number 1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion will carry 3-0. All right, we'll pause that recording. And as soon as we're ready, we'll actually move into our commissioners meeting. Okay, we'd like to welcome you to today's Utah County Board of Commissioners meeting. We appreciate your participation with us today and your involvement in our county government. As is typical, we like to begin our meetings with our prayer, reading, or thought, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And we look to those with us today who'd be willing to volunteer their time or services in those. Is there anyone who'd be willing to lead us in a prayer, reading, or thought, or the Pledge of Allegiance? Got someone for the pledge? Is there someone who'd like to offer a prayer, reading, or thought? Yes. Okay. If you'll come to the podium and just state your name, and we'll go from there.
I'm going to say a prayer.
Yes.
Whatever you
Whatever
like.
you like. Prayer, reading, thought, whatever you're
Okay,
comfortable.
my name's Luke Lewis. Kind and gracious Father in heaven, thank you for letting us be here today and letting us be here to have open mind and open thoughts. Bless us to be able to have a great meeting. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to all those who participated with us in that. It's always a great way to begin our meetings. We do, to open up here, have one unique item. We usually have the opportunity to give this award at our employee appreciation dinner, but she skipped town on us, working nonetheless. So we're going to let her off the hook for meeting that. But we'd like to take the time now to recognize the Utah County Employee of the Year for 2018, and that is Heather Lewis.
Well, thank you very much. When Richard called to tell me that this was being awarded to me, I was truly, truly, truly shocked. And I won't say the words that I said to him here, but I will just say that it comes as truly an amazing blessing and a surprise. And I just want to say that I have always felt that Utah County is my home. This is my it has provided this employment has provided me structure and safety and livelihood for I've been with the county for 20 years, so it's been an integral part of my life that I wouldn't trade for anything. I want to say thank you to my husband and my family for supporting me and helping to shape me be the woman that I am today. I want to thank my team for being so just incredible to work with, and my supervisor, Pat, and Cindy, and Richard. They knew when they hired me that it was going to be a pretty big learning curve to come into prevention and just take it on, because I didn't have a lot of experience in prevention at all, but they had faith in me, and so I'm really grateful that they extended the opportunity to learn and to take this job on. And there's one thing that I just always want to promote, and that is we're all equal. We're all just the same. It doesn't matter what job we hold, if it's the clients we serve or the commissioners who oversee it all. We're all the same, and I just try to come from a place of love and understanding, and I just hope that other people can do that too, and I'm just really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, thank you.
For those who... For those who may not know, Heather works with our drug and alcohol prevention department, and she is a prevention specialist. And what Heather does is often hard to quantify, but I would maybe put it this way. When you drive down the street and that person who's not a drunk alcoholic running you over could be because of her work. The countless lives she saves and betters because of her efforts are often hard to quantify, but the quality of the work and service she brings to this county and its citizens is certainly beyond measure. Thank you, Heather, and congratulations.
Thank you. Right, we never use that. Thank you again for all you do.
Okay, we will now go through the process of building our agenda. All items will be considered moved to consent unless held for further discussion, which I anticipate there will be quite a few of today. From our consent agenda, we do have 21 items currently on consent. I do have a request to hold consent agenda item number 6
Did you say 21?
on consent.
I see what number 21 is. Mine got missed. Okay.
So ratification of warrant summaries.
Yeah.
I have a request to hold number 6 for further discussions. Were there any others on consent that we were needing further discussion on?
Can we hold, number 4? And, I think on number 18, we have to take action. If we could hold that one?
Good catch. Okay, seeing no additional ones, I'll go ahead and move to our regular agenda. I have numbers 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 15 to be tabled until after our closed meetings this afternoon, and 17 held for discussion, and it would be my recommendation that we actually move that to our first item of business for the day, because there are other items on our agenda that are affected by the budget.
Well, actually, Mr. Chair, I would support moving that up, but because number 13, the sales tax could potentially impact the budget and the number we would need, I would maybe suggest we talk about that one first and then the budget.
I don't have a preference one way or the other, but that would be fine. So I don't know how it affects the budget, but I'm fine doing that. Okay?
And then I forgot one other thing, and I'm sorry I had it done, even though it doesn't need to come off of consent. On consent agenda, the execution of the state of the county, I thought it would, on that event room, I thought it'd be important for us to maybe state the date for that, for everybody's general knowledge. I don't know if we had that. It won't pull up the agreement for me.
We do have the date, I just don't know if I can find it that.
Yeah, just that way
quickly.
we just had it, but that's okay if we don't.
Yeah.
Brian, do you know that off the top of your head?
Sorry, what was the question? Because I was debating getting
The
up
county.
on something else.
The date for the state of the county.
That would be the 31st of January.
Thank you.
Also, while we're moving the big items up, I know that there's somebody who plans on being here today. He may or may not already be here on agenda item 6. Could we maybe address that first so that he doesn't have to sit through
Talking about regular agenda?
regular 6? Yes.
We didn't even have that to hold, did we?
No, I hadn't had it to hold yet, but I don't.
Did you want to hold that?
I was actually hoping that we would continue that until the
Okay.
next time. I talked with Paul, and with so much
Okay.
going on, we could continue that.
There is someone here, at least he said he was planning on being here, and he wanted to talk about that one.
Yeah, I'm sure he could talk about it.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about it still. But I was hoping that we can continue number 6 until the next time we meet, which is after the first year. But Paul assured me that that would be okay to do.
Okay, I appreciate
Right.
that information,
Hey, no
Brian.
problem. Thank you.
Okay, so then I would add number 6 for continuance, but if that individual is here, we will allow for public comment on all items moving to consent once the agenda is built. So just give me a second, and we'll give you that opportunity.
So, can I go over, because I was trying to circle the ones that you wanted? I also, and if I may double up on the ones
That's
that
fine.
you also said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, continue 6, 8, let me say 8, 9 were yours. 11, 12, 13. Table 15, 16, 17, and 18.
You want to hold 16 for discussion? Oh, yep, we gotta hold that one. Okay,
Oh, let's see, the number,
You wanted to hold
Number-
18?
well, I think we need to hold 18 because if we don't get everything done today, then we have to take action. Or else something has to be done there, right?
Okay.
So might as well hold it, just for safety purposes.
Let's maybe make it simple then, so 14 and 10 would be the two from the regular agenda moving to consent.
Yes.
Okay,
That does make it simple.
Dave, would you mind closing just this line, please?
okay, so at this point in time, we've built our agenda. We would open for comment,
that one's
anyone
fine
who
for
would
me.
wish to address an item that was moved to consent.
Thank you. That was very nice. And dealing with Brian, he's been very helpful. So my name's Cole Peck. We bought some property in 2017, and we received a tax notice at the end of the year, and we paid that. And then we received our tax evaluation, I guess, and we what is it called? We opposed it because we had the sell of our property for X amount of dollars, which was about half of what the county had appraised it for. And so the county agreed with us and changed our rate to a lower rate. We paid the taxes just in like November or whenever we did. And then I got a call from Jeannie Bowen. Well, they called her office first, and then I talked to her, and she says, yeah, why didn't you pay your taxes in 2017? And I said, we did pay our taxes in 2017. And so as she got looking into it, she noticed that the 11.03 acres that we purchased was actually broke up into 3 parcels, and we only received one of the 3 tax notices. So the other 2 went to the previous owner, and he didn't say anything to us. And had we known that those taxes were due, we would have paid them. And if you look at our records, we try to always pay our taxes. And so we hope that you'll be understanding. And Jeannie said, look, I don't have the power, but I see that the county totally did send them to the wrong place, and I can see that it's not really your fault, and if I had the power, I'd waive it. But, you know, she said she doesn't. And then, just so you know, rather than having a problem, because I noticed we had this bill for 2017 that was past due, and we had penalties assessed, I went ahead and paid the full bill, but I didn't pay the penalties or interest. But I also think that had we received a notice saying how much the property was in 2017, we would have opposed it then and did the same thing that we had a chance to do in 2018, which was show what we paid. The county would have assessed us less like they did in 2018. So in our opinion, we feel like, one, if we would have got the notice, we'd have paid it. But we also feel like we were overbilled for something that we shouldn't have been billed for in 2017. So we hope that we can get a refund from what we've already paid.
So my question is, Jeannie deals with personal property. So are you talking personal property or land value?
It's property taxes, but that's who ended up calling me, was that they said and maybe somebody else called and then they put me through to her. But anyway, I started talking to her, and she could see that the land value she knew had been adjusted for 2018, but we didn't have a chance to deal with that in 2017, and we only received one of the 3 notices that were out there.
Okay.
And we didn't, she even said we wouldn't have really known that, because I got our title guy involved, and the numbers, upon sell, the numbers change. So there's really no way for us to know what the property, as far as the county numbers are concerned.
Okay.
So, and now, are you saying you were going to table this until next month?
Continue.
You're gonna continue it next month?
Yeah.
So that's all you need to hear?
Yeah, we'll consider it, next month.
Okay,
We want to give you a chance to at least speak and give us
Yeah.
a heads up.
Unless
Well,
we,
I
unless we
appreciate
have the
that.
meeting on December 26th, then we'll take action on it then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope you put yourself in our shoes, because we feel like we try to do our part, and had we, you know, been sent the notices, we would have paid it. So, anyway, thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Any additional comments on items moved to consent? Seeing none, we will then go ahead and move to consent agenda item number 6. This is to approve and authorize the commission. Oh, did I miss one?
I thought Bill asked for 4.
You did. Approve and authorize Utah County Commission Chair to sign a software license agreement with Asset Works with the
No, we don't.
maintenance
We
and
continued
information
it.
to begin.
We continued that on consent. We allowed public comment. There's no vote for public comment. Correct?
Correct. So on consent agenda item number 4 now, we're looking at approving and authorizing Utah County Commission Chair to sign a software license agreement with Asset Works for $128,031.53 with maintenance and implementation to begin in 2019. Commissioner Lee, you had a question?
Yes, as I think everyone here is aware, I'm opposed to moving forward with this because I think it's important for us to go through a correct RFP process with it. There is, and so, you know, with that, it's $128,000 that we're looking at there, and I think it would be important for this county to at least put it out there on an RFP so that we can correctly go through the process. And that's the reason why I'm opposed to doing this. I think it would be nice to do it next year. And I see Robert coming up, and I'm sure he can waive all kinds of stuff, but again, I still think it would be I've found it as we've gone through RFP processes in the county that, one, it gives us usually a better product, sometimes a better price, and it brings us all in awares of what's going on with the product that we're looking at purchasing.
Well, before Robert speaks, problem is for me is this is 2 years outgoing. We've been dealing with this. We've known about it for 2 years. As was talked about in our last meeting, we want an inventory of the roads. Richard's been asking for this for 2 years. I know the wheels of government move slow, but they're not even moving in this case. So I'd like to see them fired up and moving. So if Robert tells me as my gatekeeper that this is appropriate within the county guidelines, I'm ready to move forward on it.
Well, it does meet the county guideline, the procurement rules, because it's being purchased through a GSA contract. Now, whether or not we still have the option to put it to RFP if that's what we want to do.
What's a
but
GSA contract for everybody that?
it's a federal contract. So, it complies with the procurement rules. However, if the decision is to take it to RFP, we still have that option, but it does comply with procurement rules.
Well, I got a question for you, Robert. Why did we not, 2 years ago, a year ago, send it out to an RFP?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
What do you mean?
Why didn't we consider sending it out to an RFP last year?
Why did we consider?
Why didn't we?
I don't know. That didn't come to me. I don't know.
Until we've submitted the budget transfer to you gentlemen in November, we had not had the funding identified to go forward with this. We have looked at several different software programs for this action here that we're looking at. The Asset Works was the one that was the preferred version, and looking at what it would do throughout our department to try to make it so our whole department is on the same type of software and hopefully simplify some of that for our staff. So.
Yeah, and that's not my concern. My concern is that we've had 2 years to look at this. We've barely find funding for it, and now we're going around the process and saying we don't need an RFP, even though it's been 2 years we've been looking at it. That's it's a process thing for me that I think we should go through.
Well, and I don't want to be contradictory, but we're not going around the process. I think there are 2 processes inside the county. One is RFP, and you're correct. The other, under our procurement rules, allows us, because the state or federal government has already gone through the process of RFP, and that's how they end up on a GSA or a state-approved contract, by going through that and securing that. And so it's not an end run, it's a different proposal in the
Fair
way
enough.
to get there.
Fair enough. I just prefer the RFP process.
Sure.
It lends for a lot more collaboration within the county, and more people involved in the whole thing to take a look at it and make sure that we're going in the right direction. I mean, we went through, we actually, it's interesting because we didn't want to go through an RFP process when we were looking at our HRIS system. And eventually we did go through the RFP process, and there's a lot of questions, right? That happened there. But I just think overall it's a good practice for us to go through an RFP process on big ticket items like this to get the best outcomes.
Robert, when a contract is awarded at the federal or state level, do they go through an RFP process at that level to award that contract?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yep.
And so they would have reached out and gone through an in-depth process to arrive at that. As far as looking at timing of this process, if we were to do an internal one, approximately how long would that take? And now that the funds are identified, would that cause serious delay in implementation and the work moving forward?
An internal what?
An
Program?
internal RFP. So if we do it ourselves, how quickly can we have it out there? I mean, are we looking at, this is gonna take us 2 weeks to go through our own RFP process, and then we're gonna have the software, you know, delayed by 3-4 weeks, or are we?
It's probably a couple months for the RFP process, by the time you get it written up, approved and sent out, then the waiting period, and then the selection. It's at least 2 months, maybe 3.
And you're very comfortable and confident that the process that was gone through at the federal level that awarded this contract indeed assures us the best quality product for the best price for our needs?
As far as I know, yeah.
And yes, I'm comfortable with it, as we've looked at all of the different ones, and I don't know about the federal process, but as far as the software itself, we feel very comfortable with the software.
And in price comparison, it's in
comparable.
value,
Yes.
it's there.
Yep, and we've looked at 4 or 5 different ones. They all have different components. So some have the full package that would be all of Public Works. Some are more geared to either fleet or roads. Others are you know, the similar type thing here that's a similar price. So we've looked at, I think, 5 or 6 different ones that we've looked at and actually had demonstrations done on.
Okay.
So I haven't seen any of those. I don't know if the other commissioners have seen the comparisons.
I don't know if we've provided them to you.
Yeah.
No, but it doesn't bother me. As to Richards, I don't know about the federal process. Here's what I understand to know. I'm sure it went through years and years of red tape and review, so I feel very comfortable in that process after it finally gets approval.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve and authorize consent agenda item number 4.
I will second for the vote.
Okay, have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 4. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion will carry 2-1.
Thank you. And just one comment maybe for the clerk auditor. We've got at least one of the line items in that budget transfer has been moved. A couple of them have not. I believe the budget transfer was approved by at least 2 of you, I'm assuming, since part of it's already been moved. So I don't know if we can just check on that to see where the remainder of it is.
The last I saw it, it was sent down to your office, and I don't know if it's come back.
Okay.
Is it necessary to do a budget transfer for something that will be received in 2019? Isn't that more of a?
We will have it before the end of the year.
Okay. Then yep, because I think I've signed it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now look at consent agenda item number 6. Was held for discussion. This is to approve and authorize the commission chair to sign a real estate purchase agreement, an addendum between Utah County and Alex Way Investments. We had some questions on this, Richard?
Sure. This is the American Fork 50 East property that we've talked about. I believe we had a public hearing on it a couple of months ago and declared it surplus. We do have the contract as ready and been signed. I think it's uploaded in your system. We have not got the signed addendum back. I just had some wording on there on the earnest money that was not in the original agreement. I think it gives some ability for the buyer to withdraw if doing their due diligence, they find some errors, things like that.
From my understanding, they agreed to that. They agreed to the addendum. It's just a matter, we don't have it signed yet.
We don't have a signed copy back yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it got uploaded in your agenda or not. They did come back with some language on the addendum that Richard just mentioned about the due diligence, to allow them to get, to return their earnest money if that, through the due diligence process, they deem it unsatisfactory. For example, if they find things on the property, environmental concerns, those kind of things that they could then get out of the contract. I will let you know that also in the contract, it does allow for us to accept backup offers. And we have had backup offers on this one. And so we will be likely putting that on your agenda as well as a backup offer to accept those things. But at your request, we doubled the earnest money and they've agreed to that. So.
Okay.
So my question is it open-ended that they can get out for any reason, or is it limited in scope?
It's pretty open. I guess it's a pretty typical provision of getting out for due diligence. If they find environmental, they find zoning violations, those kinds of things. They pulled it from the state real estate purchase contract on these kind of, on due diligence review. So, I mean, it is fairly open, but that is the way most purchases are on earnest money, that allows the earnest money to be returned. Now, if they just don't pay it because they don't want to close or they don't like the property anymore, then that's not sufficient. We'd be able to retain that earnest money.
So there is some parameters.
Yes, there is some parameters.
And we do have backup.
And
Backup offer.
we will have a backup offer on that, and we've talked about that before. So, and they would very much like to be a backup offer on this one.
Actually, they'd very much like to be the offer.
That is true. That's true, but they want to be a backup offer. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, so there's timelines then that are in place for
Yes,
this.
we have, and I don't, it's,
150 days.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any additional questions?
Oh, so Rob, maybe just a clarification for the commission. If they approve it today, it would be subject to that addendum being
Yes.
signed.
Addendum number 1, which I have right here, which includes the modifications to section 2 of the agreement. Yes.
You want to read those into record because it's not on my copy.
Okay.
It's not on the online copy. That way for Renee.
Well, it's fairly lengthy, but it's 2.1 deals with the terms as
Well,
far
if
as.
it's, maybe if it's fairly lengthy, maybe we'll approve it subject to, and enter that
I'll-
into
I'll-
the record.
I'll give it to Renee right now.
Okay.
2.1 deals with the amount, which I think we already knew that. 2.2 has the doubling of the earnest money, which we've discussed. And 2.3 is the provision that they added about the due diligence, so returning of the earnest money. So I have it here. I'll give it to Renee at this point.
Okay,
Are we ready for a motion?
I believe so.
I'll move then that we approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the Rep C with the modifications to the addendum.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 6 with the noted modifications. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. We'll now look at consent agenda number 18. This is to adopt a resolution approving recommendations of the Utah County Constables Nominating Commission and appointing county constables. All right, this is an
So,
action item.
Since this is my portfolio and I did represent the commission, it was the recommendation of the committee. They interviewed and met with all 4. 3, they are recommending to go to 3 constables, and they have ranked them in order. I definitely support that decision.
So I called, I talked with Court at length about this, and looking at all 4 of them, and I totally understand the first 2 with the amount of experience they have makes sense, and then the last 2 have limited less experience. I'll just put it that way. But nevertheless, I found all 4 of them in looking at them worthy of being constables. I would propose that we recommend all 4 of them to be constables for us. And I talked with Court, said, is that possible to do? And he says, yes, you can. It's not a budgetary matter. They're
We're
paid-
not limited at all.
Yeah, they're paid on performance, and so I recommend that we do all 4.
I would be great with that. Any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the recommendations and adding one more, the last one that was on there, all 4 of the individuals who applied.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 18 with the notation that all 4 applicants be granted approval and authorized. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the motion will carry 3-0. Okay, and we'll now move to our regular agenda. As noted in the building of our agenda, we are going to have a slight modification to the order. We had the request to move regular agenda item number 13 to our first item of discussion. This is to adopt an ordinance enacting Article 21-16 of the Utah County Code approving the imposition of a quarter-cent county option sales tax for highways and public transit. We have had several, this has been discussed since early spring, I think. And so give a little background, the legislature, after they come out of the session last year, give us the option of implementing this quarter-cent sales tax. In a last-minute revision to the bill, there were some changes that were very concerning to us as a commission, in particular in relationship to the transit component and that funding. Commissioner Lees let out very strongly in helping us establish an interlocal agreement that brings that transit component into local control. And then we've had continued discussion about the potential implementation of this quarter-cent sales tax, and it's a discussion we've had kind of ongoing with our budgetary items, and we've kind of come to a point today for further action. There are several actions we can take. I would like to share just a few brief thoughts on this particular tax. The first one is in its implementation. The number one thing I probably hear people complain about or have concerns about are roads and moving people from point A to point B in this county, especially with the rapid growth. Unfortunately, roads aren't free and they cost money, and we have to find a mechanism to pay for them. The state legislature has given us mechanisms to do so, and one of those mechanisms is this quarter-cent sales tax. As I mentioned briefly, there were definitely components of it that I did not like when it came out of the state legislature. Through diligent effort and work from many parties, I think I have come to a point where I feel we've mitigated those changes and made it a very different proposal. One that allows local control, one that gets the money funneled to the avenues where locally elected officials see appropriate so that we can meet the transportation needs and the infrastructure needs of this county. By implementing the tax now, we save a little over $8 million in debt. That can go to new construction. In addition, by implementing it now, we'll save an additional $2 million in construction costs. That's because we'll be able to take projects and move them forward. So not only are we going to save a couple $1 million, we're going to get some road connections to happen a couple years earlier, critical road needs. In addition to that, we'll receive about $8.8 million towards regional road projects for our county. We'll get about $4.4 million for county roads themselves. Part of what makes this interesting to me is one of the things I think it's critical to understand is a lot of times we can't change what we've been given, but we can take what we've been given and try and make it the best we can. We've been given a current transit partner who has been fiscally very poorly managed. Because of the interlocal agreement that we have passed and signed, we have the opportunity to save about $74 million in interest from now until the year 2030. That's a huge, huge savings. That frees up an enormous amount of money for us to go ahead and address some needs. That is why I believe that the mayors have all voiced strong support of this. That's why I believe that the cities of Orem, Spanish Fork, American Fork, Linden, Cedar Hills, Goshen, and Pleasant Grove, all within just a very short time frame, have passed resolutions from their city councils in favor of this. I believe that's why when I had my town halls and the discussions of taxes came up, the majority of citizens participating there supported this. The number one thing that I've heard from citizens is we all pay this and we all benefit from it. In fact, I had an individual, and I love him to death, and he's plenty opinionated and boisterous, and he called me on the phone the other day, and he chewed me up pretty good about even considering a property tax increase and give the reasons why. And then in his next breath, he said, but I voted for you because I know you'll do the right thing, so I'm going to trust you on that one. But I'm going to tell you on the sales tax, I think you need to vote for it and get it done now. You see the people moving here. I see the people moving here. We need the money for the roads. And we all pay it. But what's better is it's not applied to food and those necessities, so it doesn't impact the poor unfairly. It's a participant tax. If you don't want to pay it, don't go into the marketplace. But if you want to use the roads, if you want to use the transit, then help contribute. And so those are some of my initial thoughts on it. The hesitancy again comes because of that transit component, and in particular a service level agreement. And I want to read something that I think is critical for everyone to remember and understand that comes from our past, a past interlocal agreement in relationship to UTA. It says, new transit services to be funded pursuant to Section 2G shall not be provided until a service level agreement is executed between UTA and the county. In other words, no money can be spent by UTA for new transit services until we have that service level agreement. All money that we give them prior to that being in place will go directly to debt reduction on projects related to Utah County. Additionally, major transit projects to be funded pursuant to Section 2G, so this is after we get our service level agreement, are also subject to the written approval of the county, which county approval must be obtained by UTA prior to commencement of construction. Major transit projects are projects such as new or expanded commuter rail, light rail, or bus rapid transit construction. I believe that gives the citizens and the taxpayers great local control over the future of the transit in this county, which is a critical component and part of our growth. The only continuing reservation I have about this tax, and this is something I have about all taxes, I hate taxing into eternity. And we just seem to have this notion that we pass something and then it can just carry on forever. My proposal, if we move to vote on this today and enact it as a commission to recognize the financial benefits that it brings to the county immediately, would be that we put a sunset clause on this of 10 or 15 years so that it's forced to be reviewed at that time so that it can then be addressed to continue to meet the needs of the county. Because you know what? If our growth changes, our growth patterns change, then we shouldn't keep paying this tax. It shouldn't just be there for the money to be reallocated to something else. The people that come after should have to look at it and say, yes, this is truly needed, or hopefully be able to say, because people acted prudently before, we actually don't need this anymore, and we can relieve the taxpayers of this particular burden because we met our infrastructure needs. Those would be my particular thoughts. I'd open it up for additional thoughts from the bench before opening for public comment.
I would just have a question for attorneys. Is a sunset clause legal? Can that be something that we would put in for a review for a commission in 10 or 15 years?
We believe that we can do that.
Fantastic. Okay. I've obviously spoken highly in favor of this, and appreciate Commissioner Ivey and Commissioner Lee and the debate that we've had. Commissioner Lee has never, and I hesitate to speak, so please correct me, but hasn't spoken against this tax and knows the need. He just would like a different avenue. And I know he'll address that, I'm sure. The final component to this that was always outstanding that I heard from my fellow commissioners is the service level agreement from UTA. Yesterday, led by Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Ivey, we finally, I believe, fixed that component with the appointment of Kent Millington. We have somebody that, even in the governor's own words, is not a rubber stamper. That should give everybody a lot of comfort. Plus, you have commissioners who will always hold their feet to the fire, are very engaged in that. So I have a lot of trust in that. With Kent Millington, if we tell him we need a service level agreement by January 31st, I'll guarantee you, you'll have a January 31st service level agreement that meets the needs of the mayors in all of Utah County. So I have no problem with Commissioner Ivy's recommendation. I am more than willing to put in a sunset option for review and think that's prudent, and I think that should be the practice going forward for a lot of things.
Thank you, commissioners. I do have a different perspective with it and obvious, and I will express it hopefully articulately enough that people can understand it. First, I want to start with, I am not against road funding. That's the reason why I stayed in this fight and continued with the MOU and with the service level agreement, is because I believe that we do have needs there that need to be met. My concern is usually based on this. We had a vote on this, on Prop 1 with the people, and since we represent the people, for me, that rings pretty loud and clear into my ears of what they said. And they said no. They said no way, and in a big way they said no. And because of that, it gives me great pause in moving forward. Now, with the legislature changing some of the parameters, which they rightfully can, and coming back and saying, hey, we'd like to make it look a little different, and then it didn't look different, it gave me a lot of anxiety because it didn't. Although we fought for some change at the state legislature level, the only thing that came back that was different was a bribe from the state, and then basically a stick saying, if you would, we'd sure like you to just jump over the vote of the people and enact this. So with that, it again gave me a lot of anxiety. I tried to find ways at the state legislature to make it happen, did not happen. And so looking at other options, I thought the best option then, if we can't do it legislatively, is to do it contractually. And my past record with UTA and trying to find resolutions with them was painful. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to listen. We'd been talking about a service level agreement for years. This is nothing new. For years, with kind of a deaf ear towards us. And so I was concerned, and I was wondering if that would ever happen. Things started to change there, and the processes opened up and avenues allowed for us to have more conversations there. And so with that, you see an opportunity, and the opportunity is to go with a contractual basis with an MOU, which we worked on diligently to put into place, understanding that the service level agreement was going to have to be done. Now, here's part of my problem. I'm still ringing from the voice of the people who said no on one issue. Now we've changed the Prop 1 into something. We're changing the Prop 1 into something that is more palatable and has a lot more local control, and I'm all about that. I'm all about having local control with this, having the ability for the mayors, the county commissioners, and us being able to work with a partner in an area that sees fit, there's needs, and that sees fit for us to interject and say, this is not working for us, and having some sort of ability to hold their feet to the fire and say, here's the money, but here's our agreement, and we have some sort of control. I will never forget late Mayor Hadfield's words to me as he said over and over, he says, I have worked so hard with UTA and trying to find some way to make things work in American Fork, and I get shut down all the time. They do not listen at all. And when he said that to me again and again, he was just tired of it. And so this process is one to find local control, to also, on the other side, which is to find the road funding that is needed and necessary for all of our communities in our area. And the process continues. We're kind of halfway through. I remember a certain mayor standing up and saying, I would not vote for anything unless I had all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. Why would you ever proceed and go forward? And we didn't at that point. But at this time, we're thinking, well, we hope we're got all the Ts crossed, the Is dotted. Not quite, but it's almost there. So then, probably last, we went through a painful process with the property tax, and we sent out notices to all the residents, property owners in the county. And there was a cap on it. The cap was $7.5 million approximately. And when we got flooded, calls, emails, I would probably surmise that between the three of us, we're in the thousands, because I had emails and calls and on a regular basis coming in, and a lot of them, if you add them all up, and text messages or whatever, and conversations that we had. And they came out because there was a tax going up for $7.5 million, up to $7.5 million proposed. There was more than 200 people sitting in this room that we spent hours listening to. And a few of them, I have mentioned to them, I said, well, yeah, we have this one. We're also looking at the fourth quarter cent sales tax. And this is what they said. Wait, we already voted on that. And I said, I know, it's already been voted on, but it's being considered. And they said, well, where's the postcard? Where's the notification? How come we're looking at a $22 million increase in taxes on us without any notification? And you're looking at imposing it? Most of them said, take it to the ballot so that we can have the conversation. At least take it to the ballot so we have the conversation. Because we went through that process and spent a lot of time and energy and effort on it for $7.5 million and ultimately didn't do it. But now we're looking at having a $22 million tax increase legitimately for things that we need. I'm not trying to discount that, but we're not bringing the people with us. We're not having the conversation. Can we just impose it? We can. And as representatives, we can. For me, if this goes through, I applaud the thought for a sunset clause. I think that that's admirable, to look at. I mean, commissioners can do that any time if they impose it. I think one of the other sales taxes was imposed as well, and I mean, the commission could vote to go the other direction with it. What happens though is they get tied up into, bonds, and they get tied up into things over periods of time and years, and so it's really hard to undo without a certain process. But I appreciate that kind of thinking, because for taxes as well, it seems to always go up. It seems to never go down. Although I'm going to make mention here, we did lower taxes on one of our service level areas. I think it was a couple of years ago at least. It never gets mentioned, but it did happen. It does happen here and there. So with that, I am not, if this goes through like this, I am not voting no because we don't need road funding. I'm voting no because I have heard from the people for a long time on this, and it still rings in my ears. And I'll throw one more thing out. I was trying to find this dilemma. I know a lot of people think, well, I just get stuck in this cave and I don't listen to anybody else about what's going on. Well, I went to, I was talking with Brian Thompson about an idea, because I know that he went through a process to get some understanding from the people. And so I asked him how he used Qualtrics through a survey to put out there talking about our vote by mail, because he was concerned about what the people thought too on vote by mail. So he put out a survey, and I think it was to, I don't know how many thousands, so 60,000, 80,000?
94,000.
94,000 people. Qualtrics put that out there, and in that being thrown out there, he got about 10,000, or they got 10,000 responses back. And so in talking with him, I thought, again, I'm hearing the people so far saying, no, put it on the ballot. We got to have a conversation. We got to have a discussion. We want to be a part of this process. And although I'm not really in favor of government by survey, I think that that's detrimental in many respects. I would be willing to look at doing a survey that goes out to 94,000 people and hopefully getting a response back that would give us an opportunity to see where the people are in this process. I don't think that hurts anything, but I think that at least it would give me an idea of them saying yes to it or no, or if they do say no, then maybe it's an educational process. We could still put it on the ballot. Those are my thoughts on the matter.
So,
Appreciate it.
if I may be permitted, I should have said a couple more of these stats. To me, and this is just what went through my mind, as Commissioner Lee said, we're not a government of survey. I couldn't agree more, but during the tax meeting, the property tax increase proposal, I heard people say, what's the difference between a fee and a tax? Well, what's the difference between a survey and a vote is kind of what went through my mind as that happened. But speaking of survey, 3 years ago when Prop 1 was done, I sat at the transportation meeting up in Salt Lake, and they did a survey through Qualtrics. And I'm here to tell you the exact number that they said this vote would fail for. In fact, Mayor Brunston and I, as I'm looking at him right now, we had this literal discussion at the county fair. Literally, I can tell you which barn I was standing in front of when I told him, it's not going to pass, this is the number. That's why I'm so in favor of this, because the one component that was in there was UTA. All I ever hear. Now, Commissioner Lee and I hear from vastly different people. I know we do. Everybody gravitates toward, who and whatever, and that's okay. It's not to diminish anybody's point of view. But in those same surveys, if UTA was taken out of that and it was local road funding, which is why the legislature addressed this, it was overwhelming. And I mean, it was way overwhelming. Here's a couple other stats why this tax is different than property tax, and this is important. And thank you to Joel for these numbers. If you just take, and I'm talking bare bones numbers, the state records hotel room nights and stays, right? This is a sales tax in which potentially these people help and contribute to. If you take our 68.7 occupancy with our 4,200 and change room nights, that is with just counting individuals, not families, not couples, just a single room night, just over 1 million, 1,073,465 to be exact. That's not Airbnb, it's not VRBO, that's not people coming and staying, my family members from my house and things like that. That's part of what is going on here. Why we need these is we have a CVB who's becoming wow, what a horrible language, being very good at increasing and partnering with people to bring more and more people in, and our hotels keep popping up and bringing more people. We have, and I know why I said Everly, because we have Evermore and some of those great companies that are starting and bringing more and more people in. It's even more important because it's the local residents that we live here and we get frustrated. I love the fact that I live in Spanish Fork and there's a business district. I know when I'm in a hurry to avoid it. I know when I'm not and I want to go down there, it's there. But the roads and transportation, it's hard. I have a father who has been involved in transportation his entire career. He started with UDOT and then ended up with Provo City as a Provo City engineer. I worked there. I've seen the stress that's put on cities because residents call and say, I have a pothole. I have a pothole. In fact, when I worked at Provo City, it was even funnier. The Tree Streets didn't call. They called Coach Edwards, and Coach Lavelle Edwards would actually call Provo City and say, we have a pothole. Will you fix this, please? So those are real things that happen, and residents are ready for these things locally. This has been very important. We've heard from the business community, even those that came and opposed, the most staunch people who, again, I respect for coming for the property tax increase, in their same arguments would say, but we want better roads. Okay, this helps do that, so.
At this point, I would go ahead and open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment to this agenda item is welcome to come to the podium. Please state your name for the record.
Andrew Jackson, Heartland Association of Governments. I just want to say thank you to the commission for working on this for many years. And a couple points. I did talk with Tax Commissioner Valentine a couple days ago, and he'll be following up with a letter, but yes, you can. There is the power to repeal this. It has that same 90-day waiting period, so if it's enacted, you want to repeal it, there's a 90-day waiting period after it's enacted to repeal it, but that is possible. And then just, I'm in here just to answer questions or give you data or information. I've talked about this a lot, but it's important what well, let's stay on the sunset clause. I think that's important. One of the things that I say over and over is that money flows to competence. So you look at the work that UDOT did on the I-15 core project. At first, they had the bid controversy and everybody was all mad. But then when the I-15 core project was done and they kept extra lanes open and all that, everybody wanted to give more and more money to UDOT because they did a great job. And so I think that sunset clause is important because then it has a further incentive for those who will be in the position to manage the roads and transportation, that they'll have an incentive to be competent, and they'll know that the money will flow to them if they're competent. And if they're not competent, take it away. It's not worth it. Let's get something else figured out and figure out how to do it. On the opinion questions, we did do a Qualtrics survey several months ago, and the results of that came out that 59% were in favor, and this was just using the language from 5912-2208, which is the ballot language that would actually be the legal language on there, except taking out the transit portion because we have the interlocal agreement and just saying 4 roads. It was 59% in favor, 24% opposed, and 5% that were neither in favor or opposed to it. We followed that up this weekend with another Qualtrics survey. We've got over 346 respondents, and I'm not a statistician, but if I remember what I took years ago in statistics class, you're pretty close to being, when we talked to them before, it was up in that upper 300s, mid 300s, that you're statistically valid. And it's also, they have it cross-tabbed by zip code, et cetera, for the different cities. When we look at that, it changes slightly. We have 46% that are strongly or somewhat agree with the commission enacting the tax, and we added in there, instead of just roads, but locally identified transportation, so roads and transportation, locally identified. 46% strongly or somewhat favor, 26% strongly or somewhat oppose, and the percent that neither agreed or opposed went up a little bit to 28%. So over the last 2 surveys that we've done that have been statistically correct through Qualtrics, those that are opposed, either strongly or somewhat opposed, has remained consistent around 25%. And the other, we either have up between 59% to 46% that are strongly or somewhat in favor, and then the others are it doesn't matter to them either way. So of those that had an opinion on it, 63% were in favor and 37% were opposed. Again, just wanted to give you any information or data on that, and just I'm available to answer any questions. But I've been here and said a lot over a long time, so yes.
I study political science. I know what surveys do, and I know how they're structured, and sometimes how they're worded makes a big difference in the percentages that come out. And I look at even on a national basis, when we were going into the elections, this last election, there was a 99% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win, according to the surveys and the polls. Didn't happen. And so, you know, a 300 level poll with 600,000 people in the county, it statistically has weaker margins on it than what I would be comfortable with. A 10,001 gives me, you know, a lot more comfort in there. If we were to get 10,000 respondents back, especially likely voters that are there. But the wording and everything would be very important.
That's a great point. And I think that you brought that up, and that's why we work with Commissioner Ivey in Section 5912-2208 of the state code, which actually says what that ballot language has to say.
Right.
So we use that specifically as the ballot language. The only thing we took out was the transit portion because we have the interlocal agreement, so we wouldn't say that. Now, if you go out to a vote of the public, your actual ballot language would have to have that transit component in there. Even though you have the interlocal agreement and the money's not going to transit, you'd still have to say transit in there. So we use the exact ballot language out of state code that would be on the ballot, except removing the transit portion because we have the interlocal, which yourself and everybody else that's gotten up and spoke opposed to it was opposed to the transit portion. We've taken that out, so it is the ballot language.
Yeah,
And your second survey has the transit component in it.
We have
And
transportation.
what's
yeah.
interesting to me is that the opposition is remaining consistent.
Yeah, right. and
But there's a larger margin of
25%,
unknown,
yeah.
probably because they're uncertain what that
Yeah,
means.
and we worked with,
did you ask the question, though, if the county commission should impose this or put it onto the ballot?
no, the question was, shall the, whatever it is out of 59122208, I don't know if you've got that up, but it's, shall the county commission enact a quarter-cent sales tax, 1 penny on a $4 purchase for the purpose of local roads and transportation, locally directed roads and transportation projects. So we did not ask a question of, do you think this should be on the ballot or not? That's something for the representatives, those are elected to determine, but we use the exact ballot language specified by state code. So unless state code's ballot language is swayed one way or the other, we use that terminology straight out of there. And talking with Qualtrics folks, they said that these numbers are statistically valid within a couple percent here or there, but once you get over 400 something, and maybe somebody's a statistician, the difference between 10,000 and 400 on the surveys percentages. I mean, we talked about that one, and it was within 0.25%.
Yeah.
And used about the same number. And they balance it out by weighting it for male, female, household income, location throughout the community. So zip codes.
I don't mean to cut you off, but with all due respect, we're getting into the weeds of stuff people don't care about.
I know what I do. So if you do have questions, just let me know. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Beth Holbrook, and I'm with UTA, a trustee. And I first wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to have this discussion this morning, and I admire your courage and your desire to fully understand and work with the stakeholders that are here and engaged. And I appreciate that, and I understand the challenges that you're representing. I also want to say I am very excited to work with Kent Millington. I think that that is a great opportunity, and I'm really glad. In fact, I've been in contact with him a little bit this morning. He's in St. George, but I am really excited that he's going to be representing Utah County, so thank you. I just wanted to say that I had an opportunity yesterday to speak with Commissioner Ivey and bring in some considerations in terms of what a service agreement would look like. And I look forward, I know that we are looking to make appointments with you, Commissioner Lee, and then with Commissioner-elect Ainge as well, to make sure that we are continuing our due diligence and making sure that you have all the tools that you need. I do understand that communication has been somewhat frustrating in the past, and I want to make sure that that changes. So thank you again. And I didn't really have anything to add other than to say that I think anytime you're talking infrastructure, I think it is such a challenging and difficult topic, and I think that you have really done a thorough job of making sure that your understanding of it and the residents' understanding is, I think you did a pretty good job on that, and I know that it's very difficult. So with that, I just wanted to say that I appreciate this, and I want you to know that I will work really hard and work with Kent really hard to make sure that the service agreement that we're working on right now will be enacted and adhered to. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Ronna Rolfe. I am President and CEO of the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce. Third time's a charm, hopefully. Again, I'm here representing the business community and wanted to specifically address your point about the vote, putting it out to the vote, Commissioner Lee. I agree. A lot has changed since 2015, and it's a new day at the UTA. It's yet to be proven that it is a completely new day, but I think there is a fresh start. There's a fresh new commitment to work more collaborative to what we want to do. That's what the voice of the people spoke in 2015 was the issues with UTA, and I think a lot of work has been done to address those issues at UTA, and I think that we owe UTA the opportunity to prove themselves wrong and to do the right thing, and you have done you've done an amazing lift in getting the right people in place to protect and to lead forward for in representing UTA here for our county. So I hear you. I understand the vote of the people, but I think the work has been done to that you can go to your constituents to say that the right work is done, and now it's in place, and let's take care of the roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Muriel Sochmil. I'm a Utah County resident. I first wanted to thank you so much for considering my application to the UTA board. I really appreciate that. I know you spent a lot of time and energy in thoroughly vetting a wide-ranging field of candidates, and I appreciate that. I applaud Kent Millington for the appointment. I think he'll do a great job and represent Utah and Tooele counties well, and I wish him all the best in the position. So you're faced with another important decision today related to transportation. Why is it such an important decision? It's because transportation affects all of us very directly. Whether we drive on the roads, we bike in those bike lanes, we walk on the trails, we take the bus, it affects all of us in our daily lives. It's not the end in and of itself, right? It's a means to an end, and it supports our quality of life. We know that 48% of the particulate matter during an inversion is attributed to tailpipe and vehicle emissions. We know that driving on our roads directly affects our air quality. We know when we're stuck in that traffic, and all of us have been there, that it affects our quality of life. Less time stuck in traffic means more time with our families. It means more time doing the things that we value. Transportation affects all of us. And that is why we need an integrated multimodal transportation system to help support our quality of life now and well into the future. As a county, you know well, we're at an inflection point. We will add 1 million people in my lifetime, in all of our lifetimes, in the next 30 years in our county alone. The implications are significant. In 2015, as has been mentioned, the legislature passed House Bill 362, transportation infrastructure funding. 2 main provisions. The first was to increase the statewide gas tax by 4.9 cents per gallon and index it to inflation. The second is something that we're still discussing today, years in the making, and that was, at 2015, known as Prop 1. Well, I applaud your great work in working closely with UTA and other stakeholders to change what Prop 1 is. It's not Prop 1 anymore. It's the fourth quarter. That local control is there. You've worked hard to get an interlocal agreement in place with the agency, be fiscally responsible in paying down debt through these revenues should you pass the fourth quarter. That service level agreement gives you much more control in how the funding is spent going forward. So some will be here today to say no to a tax increase. Given the cost of deferred maintenance on our roads, I would say, please increase my taxes today so that we're not exponentially increasing taxes on our children. I have 4 young children who will be my age within that time horizon where we're looking at adding 1 million people. I want that investment in our infrastructure to prepare for what is coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ben Reeves, Santaquin City Manager. Not to correct you, Commissioner Ivy, but Santaquin actually did pass that resolution as well. I felt I owed it to my council members who came out in their pajamas at 7 a.m. on Friday morning to do that special
I
meeting.
apologize about missing you.
But not only that, this past week, the city managers of Utah County all got together for our monthly lunch, and all of the communities that attended that meeting expressed their support. They've already expressed it through the approval by their mayors. They indicated that either they're calling special meetings or they would have it on the next meeting. So I think from the municipalities you have genuine support, and I applaud your efforts for local control at the interlocal level. But I would also argue that you actually have control at the oversight level now as well. I don't know Kent Millington, but I know that you have vetted him well and will represent Utah County. But I do know Beth Holbrook, and Beth is a local government individual, not only from the private sector representing her corporation, but also as a council member for Bountiful City and as president of the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I served with Beth quite directly and many levels as past president of the Utah City Management Association and also as a board member on the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And I can assure you that you have the local control at the highest levels of UTA now. So you're basically sandwiching him in on either end. And so as far as the municipalities are concerned, we wholeheartedly support your efforts to go forward.
Thank you.
Peter Christensen, the executive officer of the Utah Central Association of Realtors. I'd like to echo what's been said already and commend the commission on their foresight to, first of all, address this issue of getting the much needed funding for transportation that will be critical to the livability of our county as this unprecedented growth goes forward. Also like to commend you on the efforts you put into safeguarding the troubling parts of that arrangement and keeping local control of the funds and hearing the voice of the people and addressing that issue. And I think you've done a wonderful job and want to recognize the amount of work that has taken from you and UTA and commend you both on putting together a palatable option to go forward. I once heard Governor Herbert say if he'd proposed this expansion of I-15 20 years ago, they'd build a statue of him now, but he wouldn't have been reelected then. And I'd like to recognize the difficult position you are in addressing the growth, but commend you at the leadership you're showing in being willing to put your political necks out there and pass this much needed tax and get these funds flowing for our county and our cities, that any delays just further put us behind on these projects. So we're supportive of this tax and we're supportive of your efforts to pass it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Brunst, Mayor of Orem. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this particular issue that is of great importance. The Kem C. Gardner Institute in Salt Lake stated that the #1 issue facing Utahns is traffic and transportation. Envision Utah took a survey. The #1 issue facing the stakeholders, the residents, the businesses, the government entities is traffic, transportation, moving people around. This is the #1 issue facing the county, facing the cities, facing the residents. We need your help on this. I appreciate the leadership of Commissioner Lee in putting forth the effort to lead out on the interlocal agreement that MAG and Utah County and UTA have put together, and I appreciate Commissioner Ivy and Commissioner Graves' work on that. As I look at it, we have had quite a few surveys done. The surveys have shown that the majority of the residents want this to occur. The recent surveys support this. We have a resolution from the Chambers of Commerce, of all the Chambers of Commerce within our county, and they all support the enactment of the fourth quarter cent sales tax by the County Commission. We also have a resolution from the Regional Planning Committee, and that almost unanimously was voted on supporting the enactment of the fourth quarter cent sales tax by the County Commission. Much work has been done since the last County Commission meeting. Commissioner Ivey requested support and information and resolutions from the cities. So the cities have been at work in their pajamas late at night, in many other times in the last 6 days, holding special sessions. I have here numerous resolutions from many of the cities in the county. Some were mentioned by Commissioner Ivey. There are others. 10 passed resolutions that are in favor. And I believe that it's important to note that the mayors and the councils are in favor of moving forward and having the county move forward with this. So please enact this. Please move forward. I don't want the county to be the only one that is not funded in this and is the lone entity that does not receive funding. It's important also to remember that your own Public Works Director has requested year after year after year funding, additional funding for roads. I believe last year $700,000 came out of the general fund to support that. And as Commissioner Ivey mentioned, $4.4 million would go towards the county moving forward on a regular basis. This is important. We have to maintain our roads to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Because this is a public record, I will make note, the mayors were mentioned, and I hope she's okay with me saying this, did receive an email from Mayor Kaufusi withdrawing her support. I just want to make that known for the public record that on her, she did do that. Again, that's because I believe in honesty and in making sure everybody knows where everyone stands.
And also, I think it's important to note that there are cities that did not.
There are cities that did
We're
not.
all saying that they all voted for it, but it's a dialogue. There are some cities that did not vote for it, or some that told me that they would not be voting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jenny Reese. I am the mayor of Cedar Hills, and I am standing here today expressing support for the imposition of this sales tax. I agree with Commissioner Lee. Our residents like to be involved in that conversation. And so when it came to our attention that you were asking for resolutions from the cities, I last week created a lengthy blog post and sent that out to the residents of my city. We put it on social media. It was emailed to every household in the city. And in that blog post, I discussed Senate Bill 136 and the changes that have come from that. We talked about the interlocal agreement and how that alleviates some of the concerns that came with Prop 1. I discussed the budget of the county and of our city and its challenges that we faced with infrastructure and roads. I discussed the growth, the changes and the acceptance of this tax that have occurred in Salt Lake, Weber, and Davis counties. And I also listed the concerns that I've heard with the imposition of the sales tax. So that way our residents understood the advantages and disadvantages of moving forward. And after that post, I received numerous emails, blog posts, Facebook posts, and phone calls. And while there were a few who were still opposed to this tax, overwhelmingly, the residents that I heard from in my community expressed appreciation for understanding where we're at today and expressed support for the imposition of the sales tax. After that, support was received from our community. Our council did come together and unanimously passed a resolution in support of. We were not in our pajamas, but you do have that resolution. And so I would just ask you to please approve the imposition of the sales tax. As I mentioned, I agree having that conversation is good, but with technology, there are so many ways to have that conversation. There's no reason that we need to wait for a ballot. I actually have some concerns about how much we are pushing to referendums, initiatives, and ballot propositions to govern. it's cheap to get a blog or a website and have that conversation with your constituents. I've done it in our city. We had the support after doing so. So I ask you to please support it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Councilman Sam Lentz from Orem. I just wanted to share my perspective because I was part of the group that was actually opposed to Prop 1 in 2015. I had voted against it. I had, that was the year I was campaigning for City Council, and I had explained to voters then why I was opposed to it. And I just wanted to share why I now support it because of the changes that have happened since that time. The main concern I had raised back in 2015 was I felt that the state had essentially created a cookie cutter approach to say, this is the formula every county has to use, the 40-40-20. And I didn't really feel like that was appropriate given the different needs of different counties, different areas. I do feel that this interlocal agreement that you've worked very hard to come up with between UTA and with MAG, I think this is a really good compromise and a good move forward. I know some communities have actually gone to the lengths of creating a utility fee to address roads. I'm thankful we haven't had to go down that road in Orem, and I really hope that we don't. But there are significant funding gaps that need to be addressed, not only in our community, but really throughout the county. And so in my mind, this is a really great way to address it, especially when you talk about hotels and you know, people coming from out of town that are really using these roads. And this is a mechanism that we can use to kind of capture some of that revenue to address those needs. So because I'm part of the 20% that essentially went from 60% against it in 2015 to now we're talking roughly 60% for it. I just wanted to give my voice to that 20% that have essentially shifted behind that. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Okay, any additional public comment before bringing it back to the bench? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the bench for additional comments. Commissioner Lee, do you have additional comments?
A couple of things I want to say. I mean, I can read the leaves of where we're headed here, and that's okay. I'll continue to work as hard as I can for the people and making sure that service level agreement is advantageous to the people here in Utah County, not just to have it because of the fourth quarter cent sales tax, which looks like it's gonna pass, even though I will be voting no on just on a principled basis that I have when it comes to what I understand from the people and what I've heard so far. But I want to, you know, I've heard individuals say that in the past they were worried about their political necks. I have never been worried about my political neck. I hope you realize that. During a campaign, there has been issues that I brought forward that my political friends would say, why in the world are you doing any of this? You should never do this during a political campaign season. I did, because it's the right thing to do. And I don't worry. People have said to me over and over, you know, you should fear what's going to happen. I don't fear the people. I don't. I think that I need to go with them. I need to listen to them. I need to be a part of it. Part of the problem that I have is that I think there's a lack of communication that we have in dialogue in general. I think there's too many times that we're afraid to actually talk, or we get on to social media stuff and we talk past each other and not to each other, or not with each other for an understanding purpose. Or we go behind the scenes and try to find ways that we can just kind of banter and put down. And so, you know, we mentioned that we came together on this UTA board appointment. It started because of a conversation. And multiple conversations. I mean, the backstory sometimes is just as fascinating as the story in and of itself. And there was weeks and weeks with a mutual friend, John Dougal, a mutual friend, that said, hey, you know what, is there any way that we could have some sort of compromise? And I said, I don't know. We've got some walls built pretty high between us, Twila, and the governor's office. And he says, well, I'm a friend with you. I'm a friend over here. Is there any way we can have a conversation? I said, why don't we work the channels? It took weeks and weeks and weeks before finally last Saturday there was one phone call and it started the ball rolling. And then yesterday we were able to, and we're going to finish it today. And so that's what it takes. And I think too many times we build these walls. I I am not going to build a wall if this passes, right now, in the sense of, what can be done. Again, I'm going to go out there for the people and work for the best solutions with UTA. We are going to leave a little bit of leverage on the table with not having that service level agreement in place. The service level agreement is yes, it will help define what goes on with the fourth quarter cent sales tax. But we've had the conversations in our, amongst ourselves and with others that we would like to have more control or at least more input. And we're going to leave a little bit of that on the table because it's not going to have to be, worked all the way through. The T's are not crossed and the I's are not dotted. This is advantageous for UTA, and I get it. It gives them an opportunity to get out of a debt payment in which they said they would never use, to fund it all the way through. And now we are using it, which is fine as we pay it off so we can increase road funding. It will free up the third quarter cent sales tax for more road funding. I get that part of it, and I applaud that part, and that's the reason why I'm in this fight, is so that we can free up more road funding for the future for us. Again, I've never been afraid of the people, and if the people, at least if we have that conversation, it gives us an opportunity to, to move forward in a positive way. I get why the mayors are for it. Who wouldn't be? The mayors and the city councils. Why wouldn't they be? If the county commission can impose it, then on July 1st, I believe, they start picking up road funding, which they need. I get that. I understand that, and I would like to see that happen. But again, I go back to my conversations and what I hear from the people as a representative from the people, and it does. It gives me pause. It gives me pause to move forward when we haven't had the opportunity to have a full dialogue with them. I'm afraid of what I see as the possible future in this state, and that is governments by referendum. It's a scary thought to see that, because we know what that trend looks like. All you have to do is go to California and you see it. All you have to see is what's going on there. I'm fearful of that and what could happen. So anyway, I'd like to bring the people along as much as possible as we try to move forward.
Thank you.
So I think there's an important name also that hasn't been mentioned in this. And actually, let me backtrack, Beth. This is really more for your understanding of how we got here. When Commissioner Lee and I came into office, and this will tell you, and where the distrust and maybe that's too strong a term, but definite misunderstandings between UTA and this Utah County Commission resides. Commissioner Lee and I came into office 4 years ago, and we had monthly meetings with UTA. Steve Myers and several representatives would come down, and within probably 3 or 4 months, those ended. And they ended really abruptly when I pointed out to them, when I asked them, as a representative, I felt, of South County, when the first quarter was imposed and they talked about light rail or front runner expansion, we all voted in South County with the understanding that all the way down to Santaquin would be front runner. I know because I lived there, and we still talk about it. And then I asked them a hard question. He says, well, we're going to need the implementation of four quarter cents in order to do that. And I felt like the ball had been moved. Commissioner Lee also then starts talking about service level agreements with them. And all of a sudden, the meetings are canceled and disappeared, and in the dark of the night, they left us in the dark, at least Commissioner Lee and I. It's not to say they're bad people, but when we're representing the taxpayers and the tax dollars, that was troublesome to us. So to say that Commissioner Lee and my questioning of UTA is not earned, I would definitely push back on that. It was definitely earned by UTA. I do think that has changed, however. Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Ivey, again, being very proactive with the legislative group here. I have too as well, but more so them, especially going forward. We have a legislative block in Utah County that also sees that problem. They have taken over and restructured UDOT. That's why we have Beth, that's why we have Kent, that's why we have this process that works under UDOT. And that's why I wanted to bring up the one name. Kent Millington has the tie from UDOT, but Utah County, we have been served in Region 3 by somebody named Terry Newell, who met with us regularly. She is now overseeing special projects and stuff under UDOT for UTA in that component. It should give, again, more comfort to the residents of Utah County because she has an understanding of the transportation coordination between Salt Lake and Utah counties and the real issues going on here. We've met with her monthly, except for the last few months where she's been in this new position. And so she has an understanding. It's all of those things that help lead me down this road of where and why this is a good thing. Commissioner Ivey talked about how much potential savings there is. That's huge. That can't be discounted. Construction costs have gone through the roof, and that's why this is important. Also, when we talk about the savings, and I thank Commissioner Ivey for allowing me to do this first, when it comes to Utah County roads particularly, the county roads are funded out of the general fund other than the BNC roads. And when I say this has a budgetary impact, we do $1.5 million roughly out of the general fund. If I remember the conversation Richard and I had when I called him, it seems like a month ago, but it was 2 days ago. So that's a direct savings for our property tax. That allows us to not increase property tax, but put more funding back into elections and property tax collection, or property tax, property tax collection and distribution for every entity and helping those things. So that's why for me it's a win-win. It's weird to say a tax can be a win-win, but these are the taxes that are win-win because those that come into our county, and we want people to come in and visit all the time and know why we're so great. But those that come in for BYU football games, UVU basketball games, BYU basketball games, all these events to see family, they put a toll on our road and they don't pay property taxes and they don't pay that. This is a tax in which they do pay to help us maintain that infrastructure that allows us to keep everybody moving. So,
perfect. Thank you. I'll finish with just a brief comment, and as many of you who know me know, I like people to know how I get to a place, and it usually involves coming along with me on a journey. And last night, we had a really busy day. And last night I got home and I was super tired but couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs and I'd bought some new Photoshop editing brushes. And so I was playing with old pictures, editing them in new ways, and I was texting one of my friends the pictures to see if he thought they were cool. And he'd respond, yeah, that looks good. And it was something to ease my mind. And after I did that, I popped open my iPad and I began to look through our agenda and work through that and the documents there. And in that process, the overwhelming concern I had was the future of Utah County. Because upstairs I had my 2 kids sleeping. And we live on a 30-acre ranch, and I thought, what does it look like for them in 25 years? And I finally managed to sneak up to bed, and my wife's pretty nice about tolerating my habits. And this morning I woke up at 5 o'clock and snuck back downstairs with the fireplace going in the quiet of the morning. And there were 2 particular people I thought of. One is my good friend Heidi, who spoke against this tax. Another is a good friend who lives down the street from me who encouraged me to run. And was part of the reason I ran. And I knew today would be a hard decision. But I knew I had to make a decision today as a representative of the people of Utah County, because that's what I get paid to do. And so I came to this meeting prepared to do it. Now, there was 2 questions that have been posed, and they're legitimate. How do we dot I's and cross T's? Well, we've drawn a pretty big line for the I. And now it's time to add the dot. And you know what? We've got about 90 days to add that dot, or at least get real close to having that dot on top of there, because we still have the power to say, we're not working together right, and change this in that 90-day window. And I have confidence that with the new leadership, after meeting with you yesterday in Kent's position, that we'll get that little dot on top of it. And I'll avoid quoting the George Strait movie there, because I'll get in trouble for cussing in public. No, I've already done that once this year, or twice. Anyway, and then the next question becomes, how do we cross the T? For me, that's very simple. We put a termination date on this tax with the sunset clause. And so we get the I dotted and we cross the T with the termination clause because it forces us to reevaluate where we're at in 10 years and make sure we're still funding and doing things for the citizens of this county at an appropriate level without taxing into eternity. And that's why today I'm able to cast a vote in favor of this, because I feel it is absolutely in the best interest of the long-term needs and stability of this county to get this funding in place. I actually believe the people support it, especially when they understand the components that are in place. And I believe we still have the capacity to dot the I, and I think that that sunset clause crosses the T for me.
Are you ready for motion, Mr. Chair?
I am.
Okay, I will move then that we adopt an ordinance enacting Article 21-16 of the Utah County Code, approving the imposition of a 0.25 or quarter-cent county option sales tax for and use tax for highways and public transit with the mandated review and sunset clause for mandated review by the county commission or sunset clause by December 31st of 2028.
I'll second it for the vote.
I have a motion and a second as stated. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. And I'd just like to, for the record on it, that my nay vote is not against any roads or any road processes that we have there. It is that I wish we could take it to the vote of the people, or at least get a good sense that the people are on board with us.
Duly noted, and I would add duly respected. All right, that motion will carry 2-1. Okay, that was exciting. Now we get to move on to more exciting budget discussions. So we'll now move to, if I can find the right number here, regular agenda item number 17 that was again advanced. This is the resolution approving the 2019 budget for the general fund and other budgetary funds of Utah County. We had lengthy discussions on this last week. And our current standing, I believe, is that we have a...
Commissioner, could I interject for just 1 second? Could we take a 5-minute break? I would sure like to take a 5-minute break.
I'd be happy to do a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
So we'll stand recessed for 5 minutes, which will re-adjourn at 10:50.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. Trying to really do it for them.
Okay, we are now back into our Utah County Commissioners Board of Commission meeting. We appreciate your patience with us working through a hefty agenda today. We will now consider agenda item number 17, which is the adoption and resolution of the 2019 budget for the general fund and other budgetary funds of Utah County. We had extensive conversations about this particular item last week. We've continued narrowing these things down. I will try and give a brief overview of where we're at and where I anticipate us
Hey,
being.
Joel, we can't shut that door.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can tell them to be quiet.
I appreciate that.
You can move forward.
So currently, we had the Sheriff's Department made some shifts in funding, and we currently now have a budget of 88 million and some change. Within that 88 million, there are funds coming from reserves, particularly to fully fund and implement the COLA as recommended by HR and some other previously identified items, leaving us with about 6.2 million in unassigned asks. In conversations, the anticipation would be that we would put that 6.2 million into a restricted account, and then as those needs arose, they would be able to come in from the various departments and access those. There would be one particular shift of 200,000 from a line item in the clerk auditor's office that would also transfer into that general restricted account.
Yes.
That's my summary.
And I could support that with the 88,738 or 285 with the 6 point, I can't remember what it is. Trying to get the numbers here. 6,583,597 into a general restricted account. I'm gonna try one more time with my fellow commissioners with this wage adjustment. I know we've talked about that, but I'm gonna try one more. I would like to see us, and this is a two-part for the employees. First part, I would like to see us on that do a wage adjustment in which we drop into their account at the first part of the year over $2,000. I don't know what that exact number is. It's about $2,300 into their account. Maybe it's more than that. I'm not sure, Deneen, if we have those numbers for sure, but into their, and that's everybody that has been full-time employed in the county during the years of 2018. And with that, obviously, if they were only employed for 11 months, then they would get that percentage of it. There's two reasons why I'd like us to consider this. First, it helps those even in the market study, in which we were looking at the market study. Some that were on the lower end of the market study had they were out of balance a little further than some of the others. And so when we talked about back pay, it would give an opportunity for these to feel like they at least got something a little different in the way of some money. It's not perfect, and it won't be perfect, and I'm sure there'll be some scrutiny with it if it was considered. But it's an attempt to do a little bit of an offset. Plus, it gives those that are on the 50,000, which is roughly 50,000 and less of those that are making here in the county, a little bit of a boost, because that set number is a higher percentage of their wage than obviously those that are on the upper end. And so I thought I'd try one more time. I know that we had this open discussion last time, and COLA was presented, but I thought I'd give a little bit more background on it and a little bit more discussion.
Yeah, I'm still a big no, and actually after you said that last meeting, boy, did I get bombarded by employees, because then they started saying, well, you said, Commissioner Graves, that government shouldn't pick winners and losers. Well, if I make $24,000, do I get more money on a wage adjustment than somebody who makes $50,000, because we're already making character judgments on And why doesn't somebody who makes 50,100, who happens to be 0.001 above the cutoff line, get any money? And that was kind of their concern. And I never know if they were making 51,000, if they make 70,000, if they make 30,000. That and the fact, if you don't do a COLA, your next salary study that's being done this year, you think sticker shock from the last one we got. COLAs are to maintain an even, which is why I've always talked about they can't be looked at a raise. They are to keep your same buying power based on the job you have under the terms at which you accepted employment with Utah County. I do feel bad for people that feel like they don't make a livable wage. But you know, the COLA does help you maintain the standard of living that you currently have, and a wage adjustment to me is just, it's opening us up to some very hard feelings inside county employees.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm not sure I followed completely your proposal. So what was the dollar figure again?
You might as well speak, it's not going away.
Okay. I think if I understand Commissioner Lee's proposal correctly, it's the same dollar amount as a percent COLA, so it'd be the $2.7 million. And I'm just going to use a rough 1,000 employees, so approximately $2,700 per employee.
So here's the other thing that comes to mind. The problem is if you do it that way, currently under a COLA or under wages under Richard Nance's department in substance abuse and health department, we get reimbursed on some of the wages based on what the federal government, those grants, the states and stuff like that comes back in. So the 2.7 is not a true 2.7, correct? Some of that comes back in reimbursements, even though we put it up front, we do fund it up front, but it does get reimbursed.
Right.
Right, so if we do a drop in the bucket, we are literally expending $2.7 million without that $1 million of revenue that comes back in.
Yeah, and I'm not here to advocate a position.
No,
I'm just giving numbers.
Right, so that for me is another concern.
So I'm just making sure I understand. So you're suggesting that we would grant every employee in the county $2,700 roughly?
Right. And that could be used, that
instead
could
of
be used in the sense.
instituting a cost of living adjustment of the 3.5% that we've identified through HR.
And to be, you know, and some of the advantages of that, if employees want to take advantage of it, they could designate that they wanted that to go straight into their HSA account, which would be tax-free. And they could, or if they wanted to have it in one lump sum, or if they wanted to have over a period of a couple of pay periods so that it doesn't hit them artificially increasing their tax load during that period of time, whatever, however they would like to look at it, that's. And again, I'm looking at this trying to find, one, we did not do a back pay. It does give a little bit of opportunity for some catch up. And again, it's not perfect. It's not something that we're going all the way through and looking at it, but it gives an opportunity there. And when we're down in UAC, and I'm hearing all the time, there are groups down there that are coming to me and saying, why don't you implement this program within your county to help those that are on the lower end that are going out to pawn shops and others and trying to make it with their wages, and it's in our county. We have that, so I'm just trying to find a way to give that group a little bit of a boost. I apologize if it looks like picking winners and losers, but you know, in cases we.
Well, I was just explaining what Summit said to me, not.
Yeah. I haven't had anybody.
But
I've actually had
with
some,
all due respect, we could still do back pay. There's nothing that says for those 16 pay periods we couldn't go back and recalculate and do the back pay. So if we're trying to do it in lieu of back pay, see, the difference is there are two different issues. COLA is a keep even. Back pay is a, hey, we should have enacted this January 1, but because of trying to get all the numbers right, which we were all three in agreement because we saw the real numbers, we tried to allow that to go on. And so till we felt comfortable with the numbers, and it took us until July to implement it. That's how we got
I
there.
understand. I'm just looking at options. If it's not palatable and we want to go with the COLA, I'm fine going with the COLA too.
And
I
that's-
just wanted to have a conversation.
And I appreciate the attempt and what you're trying to accomplish there, and I can see and recognize that. For me personally, I'm just more comfortable going with the COLA and instituting that across to keep us there.
Again, I just wanted to bring it out. The COLA is one that I'm comfortable going forward with as well. It's just another option.
No, and I appreciate the discussion. I know I see, there's parts of it that I like and think are certainly advantageous. There are parts that really make me uncomfortable. And so for me, the COLA just evenly distributes appropriately.
I did
So-
last time. I haven't this time, but with the what do you call it? The employees, it's not a union, association. The association, I proposed it to some of them, and they were pretty in favor of it. So anyway, it was just a thought.
I appreciate it, but I
But
would-
if we
I
want
would
to take it
pre-
off the table, okay,
I would
fine.
prefer to stay with the COLA myself.
All right.
Okay, is there any other questions or discussion on the budget?
Ready for a motion?
I
We're on
will,
the 2018 budget?
on 19.
19, so number 17, right?
Yes, I would allow for public comment at this time. This is a major issue.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners.
Oh.
This is off.
Renee's not here.
Try it
There
now.
we go. Thank you, Commissioners. Ralph Clegg from the Health Department. Appreciate the opportunity to comment a little bit about the budget for 2019 because we want to make sure, we want it to be supportive and make it work. Having listened to the citizens in both the Truth and Taxation hearings, I found that a good experience to listen to their concerns. I know a few other department heads were able to do that. It's probably been good for everyone to have heard that because it's good to remind us to be conservative in our approach to budgets and government. And the COLA, I think, is a very helpful thing to our employees. Shows our support for them and our willingness to help them with their ongoing expenses as expenses catch up to all of us. Just some, as you know, the health department has to support the growth of all the incorporated as well as the unincorporated areas in the county. And of course, with that growth comes a lot of challenges in trying to keep up with demands for services. Part of our budgeting process has always been that we have to build in some flexibility to handle all the grants that we have, which often create multiple grant years within the calendar year. And so in that, sometimes we end up not showing or expending everything because the grant didn't come through the way we wanted it to. And so our concern is when we look at some of what we think is the final budget proposal, though it's been hard for us to get the details of it for some reason. Just haven't
It's
been
always
able
in
to
flux.
We keep asking
Yeah.
for it. And, what I get finally, I can see we've got some reductions of maybe about $1 million in some of our ongoing expenses. And I'll just tell you some of the concerns with that is, as we balance grants, we don't allow them to spend the money if the grant doesn't come through.
Right.
But that would show up as unexpended balance, and if you're balancing that between what the actuals were in 2017, what our year-to-date is in 2018, and often it looked like we came up with something in the middle there or close one way or another, that really kind of ties our hands. Now, if we have this $6.2 million in restricted funds, it will allow us to do
Right.
that without opening the budget all the time. That's probably a very good thing.
That's the intent.
And I'm guessing
That's the
maybe why
intent
that's
because
put
it
in
gives
place.
us that flexibility.
We also, you also have how much in your reserve account? It was like $6 million?
Yeah, quite a bit. And about $3 million of that was budgeted, as I could see it, for this year. About half of that is being budgeted for this year, which is a different concern, but you understand that concern because you have that same concern with the county.
That's why we went through the process of being yelled at
Exactly.
for like 10 hours.
Exactly. So, and my experience, been here 35 years, using surplus in that way has caught up to us a couple of times when we've been out, and then the county had to come up with a big influx to keep us funded. So, but we always like to, we understand there's needs for cuts sometimes. That's just the way budgets are. There's good times and there's not so good times, and you have to go with cuts. But I always like to try to get
Ralph,
those.
and I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interject, having been familiar with you guys this year, I think if we stop using the term cuts, because cuts is too general a term, I think what this commission and what the county, what I heard is review efficiencies. And so it's not just cuts, it's making sure we're being the most efficient with the
Sure.
tax dollars.
Yeah, which sometimes causes a reduction.
Sure.
In,
It does, but.
In funds. And I'm okay with that, but it's always good to be able to take those back to our divisions, get them in the time to take them back to divisions so that they can say, hey, this really isn't gonna work, but, maybe we have a little more give here or someplace so that, so we can do that. And I'll give you some other examples. We have
Ralph, let me cut to the chase. What's your concern and what's your ask?
Well, my ask is that, make sure that we're very generous in the use of those restricted funds if we need it, because, we have some Medicaid match and some, vaccine things. that aren't
I will kindly remind you that those restricted funds that number comes from the identified list that we developed as a committee based upon your rankings. And so those are
In there.
Okay. And like I said, I've never seen the results of the rankings, so
Okay.
I don't
I don't know why you didn't
exactly
get
where
the
those go.
email, but I have a list of it right here if you'd like to review yours in particular. But that number was arrived to based on the ranking process we went through with the department heads and other elected officials.
And if we have that-
So those funds are there for you, and you just simply need to put together the areas of first pressing need and bring them to us.
Sounds good.
I think,
appreciate knowing that.
Ralph, part of it is a budgeting process, that we're looking for. Not so much, I mean, I look at your department, and it's a little different. I mean, we know that, so, but a budgeting process in which you look down through, like we normally do with budgets, and then move and expend resources, and we can see that you've moved and allocated and budgeted, and then after you've done all that, then you come back to us and say, hey, we've done this, and try to make it all work. Can you help out now with
No.
what we need?
But with those, I think with those, as you've described, those restricted funds, then we'll probably be okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You bet. And I appreciate the concern and the question.
So while Paul's walking up, for my fellow commissioners, I just want to make sure we talk about and make sure it's in the budget for the 2019 budget, is the chief deputy for judicial in the sheriff's department. Okay, I just want that on the record. The sheriff was unsure for sure.
Thank you. This is Paul Jones from the Attorney's Office, Mr. Chairman and Board. Commissioner Lee reallocated $200,000 just a few minutes ago out of the.
Well, I did.
Or
I proposed.
Proposed a removal.
I don't have that power, Paul.
Right, yeah,
I
proposed
have
that.
a proposal power.
Reallocation, and I just wanted to clarify that the purpose of that is that the county can take a fresh look at the provision of election services and equipment that we provide to the county.
Correct. That is the reason that.
Probably should have stated that a little bit more, but.
That is correct.
No,
That's
we
why
wanted to hear
that's-
from Paul.
If I don't state it, he'll come up and
We'll
state
have to
it.
hear from him at 1 if we ever get to that meeting. But that is correct, Paul. That is why that was placed there.
I'm gonna interject on that,
Chief deputy.
the chief deputy. I do have reservations there, and I'm just gonna express them. If we want to go forward with that, that's fine. But we have still in the staffing plan, I think, one chief deputy, and it shows 2 lieutenants, and then some sergeants, and then down. So I have not seen a reduction. Are we doing 2 lieutenants? And if we're doing 2 lieutenants in there, that.
What I was
I'm
proposing
wondering
is
what-
implementing his plan, and the reason for me to bring that up, and I want to say this, was that $200,000 we just pulled out was because of an incoming elected official who is reviewing and wants to potentially look at. We last week, all these meetings are blending together. We approved for incoming county attorney 3 new chief deputy positions and restructured that. So I think in the spirit of allowing the elected officials to have the department in which they feel to need to be successful, I think it would be unfair to hold the sheriff to a different standard. And he came to that, and he, unlike the other incomings, he's not incoming anymore. He'll be re-sworn in, but he has some background now.
That's not my concern. My concern is that we have slotted 2 lieutenants
Oh, okay. So
that
you
are-
want to remove one of the lieutenants?
I
with it.
mean, we have, I understand the structure that it's in there, but it already had a lieutenant in there before. So,
And my,
are we reallocating?
my emphasis for this budget particular meeting for today's purposes would be that for the sheriff, in that staffing purposes, we had identified just over 1.4 million that would enable, upon our approval, once an actual proposal is brought to us, the funding of those positions. Whether we approve that
Right, they're not
proposal
approved today 'cause there's no
or
staffing plan.
not,
Right, yeah, yeah.
it would be dependent upon that.
I just want to make sure I
But
have that conversation.
All right.
To resolve to the sheriff's department, there will be budgeting items there that you can come to that restricted account and make that request and make your pitch as to why that particular staffing plan is merited. You can win the three commissioners over on why that's necessary, and those funds are within that process, but they will be part of your staffing plan that you bring forward.
Yeah, that clarifies that. Mike Brower, the sheriff's office. With the two lieutenants, the one was existing, the other one was approved out of restricted for that new court, thus the two lieutenants that we currently have in the plan now. We'll move forward with that next year with that chief deputy line. I did have one point of clarification on our end as far as wildland fire. I think there were some discussions with the sheriff. I just want some input on how moving forward with the requests that weren't on there to replace the brush truck the state
Well,
took
so
back.
again,
And-
so going with the
lovely
lieutenant,
meeting.
what you need to do is get with Ralph in HR, because the staffing plan, and again, sheriffs, we haven't said yay or nay. There's actually not ever been on the commission agenda that discussion.
Oh, this is a different issue.
Yeah,
I thought he was talking about the full-time chief.
No, he's
No,
talking about
this
a
is
different issue.
Oh,
This is related to the equipment, the brush truck that
Oh,
was
yeah,
taken
yeah.
back by the state, and then the
Yes,
the
that's
minimal
right.
cost we'll have in
Now,
providing to the state.
I asked the sheriff if that was in the tentative plan, in the tentative budget. He told me it was in the tentative budget.
Yeah, I'm not.
If it's
I'm not
in the
seeing it
tentative
in
budget,
there.
was that in the tentative budget? He told me it was in the tentative budget, and we're looking at funding the tentative budget. So I felt like we'd already crossed that bridge, but maybe there's still question.
And my guess is it wouldn't have been in the tentative budget because the tentative budget started out based upon 2017 actuals.
okay, so what's the
And so-
amount?
151,000.
151,000 for the brush truck, and
We,
then
we can
another.
add that amount to the restricted, just for purposes of future discussion that we'll have.
We could come forward with at the time, yeah, and I'd be fine with that. I just didn't want that to be a topic we overlooked.
I appreciate
My
it.
guess is they'll have to open the budget more than once, and the 151,000 will be able to go somewhere. If it's not,
Okay, and we had that, a very lively conversation last night, and I'm sure you got briefed on what happened
It
there.
was
but-
very
A little
lively.
bit.
So, I mean, we can add that on for future conversation.
I
I've
appreciate
got
the last
one more though that I want to bring it up, especially in a public meeting. In talking with the sheriff, as you're well aware, we're looking down through vehicles and the placement of vehicles, who's taking vehicles home. I would like to, and I'm just proposing that I'd like, as I'm going through the vehicle list and the master list, when I had a conversation about those that are taking vehicles to the judicial part, and then also they have vehicles they can drive home with. I mentioned to the sheriff I was concerned about that because their destination of workplace is the court. And just like county employees that come here, it is their workplace. He mentioned to me that only sergeants and above have vehicles, or they should only have sergeants and above going to judicial. So I pulled the list on there, and there's some, I'd like to have further, all I'm saying is I'd like to have further conversation, about, there's 14 or 15 vehicles there that we should have some conversation about.
Sure.
I'd actually like to take that a step further, Commissioner Lee, and see, publicly, the commission generally has our internal audit team review. And again, it's not to condemn or to change, but we maybe ought to order an internal audit for use and practical purposes, because what they'll often do is review what other entities do as well and make recommendations that can then be discussed. And as far as potentially maybe we don't need as many, maybe we need more. It actually works both ways. And so I would maybe like
Yeah.
to see us go down that road.
And that's the reason why I was working on this master list.
Right.
Because we didn't have that master list before. Now we have it. There's a few little gaps, I think, that I'm working with Richard on, that there's blanks on one side. I don't know if I still got, anyway. we can work on that. There's one page that doesn't have all the information.
Right.
And there was some more information I was asking Richard for, just so we have that master list, we know where the vehicles are, what's going on with them.
Mr. Chairman, I just might
Yes.
mention that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the internal audit team did make an initial review of that, made some recommendations. I know that I believe it's in your possession, but I know you're waiting for that master list to make some final decisions. But just so Commissioner Graves knows, there was a review, and we can update that.
Right, and that's what I meant. Now that we've identified and actually have a list, because they weren't able to have a list of who and what needs, and there's another component of that that wasn't analyzed, and it gives the sheriff's office a chance to answer that, and that is, as Sheriff Smith pointed out to me, some of these judicial also serve as search and rescue, and so there's a need, there is a different need outside of that, and that's why they have the truck and certain equipment. And so I think that further, deeper review, and again, the initial audit's there, now we have more information, let's expand on it.
Okay, and I just want to remind the
Right.
commission that an effort had been made
Yeah.
previously. Thank you.
And we've created a list, and the sheriff does have that with some of those vehicles. And I think we were able to, with the combining of the juvenile courts to the 4th District here in Provo, eliminate 2 of those
satellite.
vehicles there. So we have been evaluating all
Sure.
of those and providing, like Commissioner Graves said, what other resources some of these sergeants have, whether they're on SWAT or covering search and rescue, and some of these other entities that we have to
And then they have to use the
cover.
vehicles to transport all the time throughout the day. They have to transport inmates from the jail down to Spanish Fork.
And that's why I think it's important to have it identified. And what the commission's really, where our end goal was on this, was to say, okay, if they're transporting, then that should be in the job description. And what we want to be able to do from a budgetary standpoint is take a vehicle and say, this job description always will have a vehicle. That makes it easy for the audit team and the commission, so that replacement, or if we add a position, we're adding a like position, and we know, oh, that comes with a car, not just a flashlight or a handgun or
Yeah.
something along those
It's
lines.
easy, and then, I mean,
Yes.
obviously, we have vans and transports and so forth, so anyway, we'll work through it.
One of the other things too is on that, we did get that van, that transport van, and you've got that on the
No, it was removed.
2019.
It was
It was
removed.
removed in
You
our
did remove
total.
It was removed from the total.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I ask for one more clarification with Deneen, and it may take Richard, for the total amount, since we have approved today on the consent agenda that new software? I don't want to be surprised, and I think it needs to be brought up. Is there an ongoing maintenance expense with that? Because we should account for that in the 2019 budget.
My understanding on it, there is some ongoing expense, but I believe it's already covered in our individual budgets under the
Okay.
software line item. I don't think it's specific to Asset Works, but what Gina told me was already in
Okay.
the budget. So-
That was your bite at the apple. Okay.
So, maybe one more comment, since we've had comments in the previous stuff about road funding.
Oh, yeah, we need to
Coming,
read that.
coming out of general fund. We do not put general fund money into roads.
There has been at times in the
We're
past.
talking in the past.
Right,
Way
correct.
in the past, so, I mean, we don't,
But we've had some in somewhat recent years.
It's been budgeted from the general fund, but it hasn't, the general funds haven't been needed.
Okay.
yeah.
I was not
Okay.
aware of that. So.
But speaking of that, and that's probably, someone was gonna bring up that point, the other amendment that I would probably request is that we add 23,199,000 for the new quarter-cent sales tax to the Fund 247.
We'll need help when we make that motion for you to give us the correct.
Would it be that or half that for 19?
It will, because it will enact on the 1st of April. based
Oh,
on-
April. Okay, I
so
thought it
it'd
was July,
be-
sorry. So it's 3/4 of that.
Right.
But why couldn't we amend the budget?
We would just
when we
amend the
get that-
budget when that actually happens.
Okay.
That
Either
would be
way.
my preference on that. We'll
Way
actually.
we have,
Yeah, that way it's all.
We'll amend the budget, and we'll have a firm knowledge, and as was mentioned, as part of that, there's a 90-day window to still get some paperwork done.
And at that point, is that when we would look at what the
Impact on your budget.
yeah, the road portion of that for us, and we'd have
that's,
some.
and that's
that will
great,
be a-
because then we can see, we can see how it all
How
functions and
it
works
functions
together.
and works. So I would prefer to do that at that time with a budget amendment.
Can I make a motion?
Yep, do you have the new amount with the 151?
Oh, well, I'll have Deneen add it for me. So I'll make a motion that we pass this budget, adopt the 2019 budget with $88,730,285 that was proposed to us in our tentative budget, and all those that were associated with that tentative budget, with putting into restricted account the $6,583,597 plus the $151,650 that was for that, or that was identified for that brush truck, but removing from our general, or from our tentative budget, the $200,000, and also putting that into restricted. That's probably confusing, but hopefully that makes somewhat sense.
I know what you mean, so I will
Okay.
second.
Okay.
I'm getting a nod from the person who punches the numbers. So I have a motion and a second to adopt the 2019 budget as stated. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion will carry 3-0.
Just for point of reference for the employees, that did include the 3.4% COLA.
Okay, now we're gonna keep rolling, because we gotta get done by our 1 o'clock meeting. We're gonna come back to regular agenda item number 1. This was to discuss, approve, or authorize the commission to issue a county declaration on National School Choice Week. I will briefly introduce this, as it was my agenda I put on there. I simply received a request from the organization that does these, that we request them, and that they don't advocate one thing or another, just to bring public awareness about school choices.
Yeah, I totally agree. The reason why I circled it is because what I saw on the agenda, usually we vote for what we see on the agenda, and it needs to be on letterhead and worked up so that
It's nice
yeah.
and normal.
I don't have a problem with the content,
Right,
and I
right,
think
right.
that we just need to, I didn't know if the lawyers actually looked down through this and checked off on it. I don't know. I just.
We can continue.
I,
if we
no,
need
I
to,
don't
we-
think it's a problem. I think that if contingent upon, I don't mind approving it, contingent upon us putting it into the proper format.
Because the verbiage was on the email link, and I can. forward
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the commission chair to issue the county declaration with, I don't know what you call it, just putting it on our letterhead and formatting it appropriately.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve regular agenda item 1 with the noted changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That will carry 3-0. Next is regular agenda item 2 to discuss, approve, or deny the commission chair to sign IGP grant contract with the Department of Workforce Services and the county.
Yes, and I'm all in favor of this as well. I'm just kind of going back to process with it. I think, did Anthony, is he still here? Did he review this one?
Yes.
He spoke out against, not against it, he spoke due to the
Okay,
details
well, you're
last
here,
meeting.
you're here. As I'm, and it's, maybe it's a picky thing on my part, but I hate it when we put acronyms into contract language, because then it leaves for, some
Is it the
wild
I-
speculation of what it could be.
Is it the
And there's-
IGP?
I think there was a couple of them on there that I saw on there without a reference to what it actually
Oh,
is.
okay.
Okay.
And it, actually, in the application itself, there was misspelling or two here and there. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay.
I want to talk about it. I'm fine with the content of what we're doing with it. There's just some procedural stuff.
The
that-
only acronyms I see is DWS,
Yeah, that's the,
but it's on their letterhead for Department of Workforce Services.
I'm fine. So-
IGP, the only acronym on that is followed by the actual full language of it, so. Yeah, so.
So we could certainly.
No.
No,
I'm the
this is Department of
administrator.
Workforce
He's
Services.
the administrator. So we could simply pass that with
Sure,
a
sure.
note
I
to
have a problem with
change
it.
the DWS to read Department of Workforce Services. Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the commission chair to sign the IGB grant with the stipulated change.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item 2 with the stipulated change. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Will carry 3-0. Next, I have regular agenda item 3 to approve and authorize the commission chair to sign change order number 3 regarding the TMS agreement with Mercer. which allows the 2019 year of service support hours for the Workday program. Commissioner Lee, you had a question?
Where's the account? Where are we taking this money out of for this?
So that is actually in the 2019 budget, and it's the, TMS hours for service support for Workday. And we need the, agreement signed, now if we can, so that we can actually move some of those hours to this year, because we're out of hours and we're in the middle of several.
But they'll take the payment for next year.
It'll actually be in next year's budget. We
Okay.
just need
So
to
it's
have
in
it-
next year's budget?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. We just need to have, the agreement signed now so that we can, continue the work that we're in the middle of right now with Workday. Anything, Rob?
Just mention one thing, it's actually not a change order. It is, they want to do a new agreement. It doesn't change anything. The language is the same, but the agenda says change order. It's actually just a new agreement, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then I will move that we approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the new agreement, the TMS agreement with Mercer for allowing the 2019 year of service support hours for Workday.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the agreement as stated in regular agenda item number 3. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0. Next, we have regular agenda item 4. This is receive the recommended proposal for further negotiations, award of a contract related to the RFP for the commissionary services at the county jail. Robert, if you want to just tell us the recommendation, and how it was arrived at, please.
All right. This was an RFP for commissary services at the jail. There were 2 proposals submitted, and the evaluation committee voted unanimously with the number 1 pick for Summit Food Services.
Who do we currently use?
We currently use Keefe Commissary
Okay.
Network, but they were the other proposal.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we've received the recommendation and that the selection is Summit Food Services.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to receive the recommendation and award to Summit Food Services. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. Next, we have regular agenda item 5 to adopt or deny an ordinance to amend the county zone map from the grazing 1 zone to residential agriculture on a property of approximately 40 acres in section 2 T9S R1E.
Okay, Brandon Larson, Community Development Staff. So real quickly, this is again 40 acres on West Mountain. It's currently in the grazing 1 zone, and the applicant would like to have it rezoned to the RA5 zone. This property's on West Mountain, and the property's a little bit out, there's some elevation to it, still developable. There's also on the east side, the Highline Canal runs alongside of it. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of this application. They found that it met the general plan, and was for the best of the public, and also felt that it was in line with the ordinance. Staff disagrees with that and believes that it doesn't meet the general plan. Our 2 concerns with it, with the application, is that the general plan says that if you're going to rezone land to the RA5 zone, that they should show an existing historical irrigation system, which there's a lack of that. There is some irrigation that has happened on the property, but it's been pretty limited to around, it appears to be limited to around the dwelling site. And so that's one of staff's concerns. Another concern would be that it is in an area that is it's in our urban wildland interface, and it is also in our natural hazards overlay zone. So we are concerned about increasing densities, because if you're in the M&G 1 zone, you can have 1 home per 50 acres. If you go to the RA5, you can have 1 home per 5 acres. So you're increasing potential residential densities in there. And so those are our 2 concerns.
Okay, so my question would be on that. Without historical irrigation, or I would assume there's no irrigation surface rights to even allow for wells to develop.
She has a well, and I think she does irrigate a bit out of her well. And so she has planted quite a few trees around her home, but as far as surface rights, she actually is working on that, but she also, and she can speak for herself, I think there's plans to develop that surface system, but I don't think it's quite there yet, at least not to anyway.
But again, you wouldn't allow any permits until some of those things were resolved anyway, so even if we change the zone.
Yeah, I guess technically, if she could provide water either through a well or through.
I mean, but she'd have to show that she can have water, right?
Correct.
Excellent.
All right. Additional questions for Brandon? I believe there is an individual here to speak to this. We would open it for public comment at this time.
I am happy to answer your questions. At this time, I'm not looking to add additional dwellings. The issue is historically, I have about 67 acres and change, and part of it is on the east side of the canal, part of it is on the west side of the canal. The fellow that built the home built it on the west side of the canal, which was not legal. And so the county made it be a farm unit, which means you can't adjust any property lines or anything. Also, I believe it's the canal that determined what was RA5 and what was G1. I have found out this summer that half of the property in the proposed rezone is within the Strawberry Project. I was told that the canal was the dividing line for the Strawberry Project, but I found out that indeed we can irrigate out of the canal on the west side. So we will be able to do that. The reason we have only a little bit of irrigation now is because it is coming out of our well, and that's why it is around the house. So we do plan to continue that. We've talked about there's a place for a turnout and everything to get irrigation on that west side. But the major issue is it has some really funky property lines on that property. My well is actually on the neighbor's property, and I can't do any property line adjustments to fix that. I can't purchase property from him and add it to I can't do anything.
This change would allow us to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, well, in order for the farm unit to be developed, the first thing that had to happen was a rezone. And now because compliance issues have changed, I'm also going to have to put in a road and get myself some better frontage because our frontage is on an extremely long flag lot. We never did this before because we didn't have the means. So the plan is to get the well on my property and become compliant.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Jan Barker.
Thank you. Thanks
Legally
for the catch,
Janet
Ralph.
Barker. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Are there any additional questions or thoughts?
I'll make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to amend the Utah County zone map as stated in number 5.
I will second with just one comment. This is why I pled for the last few years. West Mountain's talked about incorporating. Boy, would I still be a very strong advocate of that because you need to take control of your own area. So anyway, strong second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adopt the regular agenda item number 5. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. Continued regular 6. Next, we have regular agenda item number 7 to approve and authorize the commission chair to execute an agreement with the Utah County Public Defender Association for 2019.
So Paul, what's the amount that we put? Did we use the tentative budget amount and restrict the remaining, or does that have the additional 1.3? Because that's one of the questions.
Right. This contract we have in here just has
The tentative budget.
the tentative budget
Okay.
amount. I don't know what you did with the other amount.
It's in the restricted for the budget.
So from in our restricted,
You had like 800,000, I think. Your extraordinary expenses, is that what you're looking at?
No, I think you're looking at next year's budget, aren't you?
Yeah, so what we did is in that 6.2 million is 1.3 million roughly, your number, the 1.3 in addition. We've restricted that, meaning you just come back and there'll be a proposal because the couple of unknowns were you have those trials that we don't know necessarily the expenses. So it gives us a chance to control those and make sure that we're not overspending. Not that you do, but
Talking about the bomb?
yes.
Okay.
That's part of it, yeah.
So because then all we would have to do is amend the agreement that we're currently going to enter into. So in other words, you enter 2019 with the exact status quo that you have, can come back to the commission with those additional requests to withdraw, and it doesn't take much to actually do that and amend the agreement. So that 1.3 is set aside for you is what we're saying already.
So what is the amount that will be included in the contract as of today?
Deneen, do you have the tentative budget amount on that?
So I uploaded a new version of the contract,
Hold on, I want to hear Deneen's number.
maybe last night, but.
Yeah, so the tentative budget number was $4,781,584, and I should say that includes a $500,000 increase from the 2018. That's the base
Right.
funding and doesn't include extraordinary costs.
Right. But I know Tom's real concern would be that 1.3 million in those additional expenses. And so it's identified in the budget, it's in that restricted amount. But for this agreement to move forward a little faster, this felt like the easy way to do that.
Okay, I understand. What I don't understand is the process for moving forward in the future. But-
So every time you need those monies, or you'll just get with the commission, you'll actually get with Paul, he'll amend the agreement. You'll talk to them on why, and it's that easy. It's a commission agenda item for that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for all you do, sir.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move that we approve and authorize the commission chair to execute the agreement with the Utah County Public Defender Association for 2019. The agreement with, for amount is $4,781,584.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 7. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion will carry 3-0. Next, we have regular agenda item number 8, to approve and authorize the chair to execute an agreement amending the contract for 2018 with the Utah County Public Defenders Association.
Is there any way, Tom, with that last one, that we can get the state to step up and do a little bit more funding there? You see any opportunity there with the state legislature?
Yes. Mhm.
You do?
I do.
So we're gonna have to get together and work hard on this next session?
Would be helpful if all parties met at the same time rather than separately.
Mhm.
And I'm certainly willing to do that.
Okay,
Great.
good to know. All right, so we have a contract adjustment. Are there questions to the contract adjustment?
Let me just comment, Paul Jones here. I actually have two contracts in the system, and so your
I
motion.
only see one. It says one amendment in the system.
I amended one sitting right here about 2.5 hours ago. So I don't know if you need to refresh or if it's in there.
I don't know that I'm willing to entertain something that got uploaded after we publicly noticed.
Right, well.
Because this is the document that went out to everybody else to see.
Right.
That's my concern.
Yeah, certainly, even if we do, of course, it would be up to the Board of Commissioners. We're in full compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act because the agenda items clearly spells out that we're looking at amending the 2018 agreement. The commission office approached me yesterday, Commissioner Ivey's assistant approached me yesterday and let me know that the amount I had put in, the amendment was being adjusted. And so.
Is that from the 112 to the 131? Is that what the adjustment is?
Okay, so it was at our request that we changed the amount.
Right.
We just didn't get it uploaded in time.
Yeah, I just found out last night.
And that was via our conversations with their
Okay.
Office of Additional Needs that they were short. That brought that from 112 to 131.
And so how, was that based off of Ralph's recommendation that I have the second part with?
112.
Yes.
The way of
112.
the market study 5.58 and the merit increase of 1.76?
Right.
And so that's the reason why the 112 went to the 131.
Actually, it went from 61 to 112. I'm not certain where you're getting a figure of 131.
Yeah, the 131 is the total amount of these three added up.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
so
I
you're
understand.
talking about the 5 workstations and the CLE costs?
So, yeah, so the dollar amount was 78,146.
I saw that one.
Now it's going to the 131,176. That's the adjustment.
I'm with you now.
Do we ever look to see if we could capture some of that CLE cost
You can capture all of it.
with the state?
Yes, that's all recoupable.
So why do we have it on here then?
Well, because.
Because we have to get it reimbursed.
We have to
Yeah,
get
it's a
reimbursed.
reimbursement.
So this was just okay, because we had that conversation and you said all that can be captured.
Yes, all of the CLE. None
Oh.
of the workstations.
Recapture,
Right.
not.
Yeah,
Right.
recapture. So
Has
in
to be
essence,
paid first and then recaptured.
in essence, that 6,493.28 is not a hit to the county.
It's not.
Right,
It will be
we'll spend it and
reimbursed
it's
by the
coming
state.
back.
Let me comment that in this amendment agreement, there's a section 1 and a section 2. The way I had sort of designed it here was the section 1, my understanding was that those would be costs coming from the county, that's the 131. Section 2 is an amount because the state contract has been increased, the 56,000. And that's on, that's from like,
So what you're saying on that then is that 6,493 is.
that can maybe be moved down to
needs to be
section
moved.
2.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, well then we'll make that change in our motion and we got the amount. So,
This is gonna be an adjustment for 2018.
this is a 2018
We're
adjustment,
just getting it adjusted now, so we know when we do the 2018 where the adjustments are gonna happen.
correct.
How they're, okay. And then the last one, you have $59,000 that you're short in extraordinary expense
And that's,
this year.
those are reserve funds built into the contract, the 218 contract that I've just not sought yet. And it's section 4B1
Mhm.
contract. And actually, those funds cover both 217 and 218. I didn't make a request in 217. At the end of 217, it was either such a small amount, or it may have been actually a surplus from a payment from 216 that I didn't seek any funds in the extraordinary funds in 217. At the end of 216, I'm sorry.
Right.
And then this amount represents 217 and 218.
So Deneen, you've got that, that's the 131, 176 minus the 6,493,
I
28.
have not seen
You
any
don't?
of these numbers. The last numbers I got was November 29th, and it was only 78,146.69. So I'll need to get the information to know what to do with the schedule.
But we need to get that information because we're adjusting today.
I know.
Well, I think for today, I think we're all on board that the total amount in the amendment is what we're looking for. I think we were maybe gonna move out of this 131, I think we're gonna try to move
6493.
6493 down to section B, just gonna move it from A to B.
Right.
And then as far as
well,
the,
last time you said section 1 to 2, so which one is it?
yeah, sorry,
'Cause
it's A to
good-
B. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go with letters instead of numbers.
Okay.
As far as the 59,000 is concerned, we'll have to figure that out at some later date, I think, right? That's not being affected here by what we're doing
Okay.
right
Yeah.
now. Is that right?
Well, I'm not following you, but
You have trust in Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, yeah. No, the extraordinary expenses, we're not amending the contract to account for that.
On our YouTube feed, will you loop that about the trust in Paul and the chuckle?
All right, come on, I trust Paul.
that much I understand.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're clear as mud, ready to entertain a motion?
There's not, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, I'll move then that we approve and authorize the chair to execute an agreement amending contract 2018-838 with Utah County Public Defenders with the stipulated changes moving the amount from section A to section B and the new total of 131.
No. Well,
Yeah, that's fine.
you can say that with 131,
176.
176
Yes,
And 10
minus
cents.
the 6,493.28.
with those amounts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve approve regular agenda item number 8 with the stipulated numbers. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion will carry 3-0. Next, we have regular agenda item number 9 to approve and authorize the commission chair to execute an agreement with the Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau to provide funding for Convention and Visitor Bureau services in 2019.
Do we need to hear from Joel? I'm comfortable with just moving forward on this one.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
on it, If we
Huh?
can, and I appreciate.
You bet.
Number one, just thank you to the commission for your
Again,
ongoing
just state your name for the record, please.
Joel Raker, President and CEO of the Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau, doing business as Explore Utah Valley. no more acronyms, we're trying to say everything. Anyway, and I want to thank this guy for helping draw together this agreement.
Do you trust me? That's the big question.
I'm waiting for that YouTube loop so that I can just be reminded. Anyway, the agreement looked great. It's worded, everything there. The one part that was not in there, and I don't know if that's going to be approved separately, but we had a $56,000 additional ask, $30,000 for sponsorship, and $26,000 for some upgrades in the visitor center, lighting, a desk, a few other things. Last year, it seems like that was included as part of the contract. They had that additional one ask. It wasn't this year. So the question is, will that be added? Is it something that can still be discussed, or has there been a decision made?
That comes out of TRCC funding anyway, right? So it can be added at any time.
It does. I
thought it was.
I thought the discussion was, especially with sponsorship stuff, that we want that to come on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah, but the 26,000 for the upgrades,
The upgrades.
I
The
thought we
upgrade
were
was,
okay.
yeah, so.
I thought it was
so
in
it was
there.
kind of a split. It was a
Right, it was a
I don't
split.
think there was a problem with the upgrades. I didn't
Yeah.
have a
Right, the
problem with that.
upgrades-
So we'll,
be
yeah,
added to this?
so, yeah, we'll motion and amend
Okay, we'll put that in
$26,000.
The 26,000 for the,
Yeah.
and then we can have a further discussion on
Right,
the.
on sponsorship stuff,
sponsorship.
like we've had in the past in some cases.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the only question or comment I want to make on that one.
Okay,
Okay, then I'll move that we approve and authorize the commission chair to execute an agreement with the UVCVB, I like acronyms, for the 2019 services with the additional $26,000 identified for projects within the Bureau.
a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 9 with the stipulated changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0. Next, we have regular agenda item number 11. This is to approve and authorize an agreement between Utah County and the Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau for Utah County Fair Director. This was continued from the December 4th and 11th meeting. This contract sends additional funding to the Bureau to help oversee the functions of the fair.
Again, thank you for your confidence.
Yes,
And
and you have to say your name
Oh,
again,
Joel
'cause it's a new
Raker,
item. Thank you.
Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau, doing business as Explore Utah Valley. We appreciate the confidence that the commission has in us. And, we appreciate working with Ben here on getting the wording and the agreement pulled together. The only concern we have in here is that, where we're a tourism organization and we want to make this a tourism event, there was a request for an additional $100,000 that the wording is in it that can go before the Tourism Tax Advisory Board, which doesn't meet until the first week in February. So in all reality, it's probably a couple of weeks later that money could be approved. But the wording also requires us to have a fair plan pulled together within 30 days of executing the agreement. And it's a little bit difficult because we won't have a director hired probably within 30 days. And again, if we can work through that, because the wording does say that we have to mutually agree upon the fair plan, and we think we can get there.
Yeah.
It's just that
That's
one.
fair.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be some sort of just mutual understanding without it written in here that we're cooperating together on that. That's a fair assessment. This is kind of looking at more than the first year startup. It's looking at into the future.
We just feel it's really critical that we get the right person and the expectations for that individual hired. And
So would you propose that we do a 60 days?
if we could do a 60-day, I think that would get us there, or include it to 250 where it would be. But again, I know how you have
And
to work through
that was the delay, like with Mr. Garfield that I talked about, without the 250 up front, and that's the reason for the delay. Because until the funds are guaranteed for that, they can't guarantee the results.
And so I think if we amend that to 60 days, we change that to 60 days, we go ahead and bring that before the board, it comes to us, we're only a couple weeks and it's approved, and I think that gives you the time.
Well, we can be
and
pulling
the
together a fair
resources to do
plan
it.
that can be reviewed with the candidate, and we understand there's gonna have to be some flexibility on that, but we just wanna make sure we don't get behind or not be able to get it in within the 30 or 60, even 60 puts it to the end of February, basically, and that should be doable.
Deadlines make everybody work faster, so I'm good at 60 days, Joel.
I'm good with that, and I'll stop talking.
Except that we could do a continuing resolution like at the federal, no.
Yeah.
He's no.
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, and I think that, I think, if I can express this as a possible end goal, because I know that there's some concern on your part, I just want to appreciate what you're willing to do here. Willing is an interesting word.
We fixed that wording, which was great.
We did change a few things around to make sure that you are comfortable in working with us on this. It does help the county. It will help us with some I'll say full-time eyes on there to kind of help on a professional basis, get us to a point to where it may change in the future, and I would hope maybe that it might, but it'd be a consideration for the future. So we appreciate having you raise the level of that awareness with the fair and get us to that status where we can have more options.
Well, we've been a trusted partner for 15 years as a privatized organization. We want to continue that, and we'll continue to communicate, work well with you to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
So, can I make just one comment before we do that? I've gone so far back and forth on this. I think my clock pendulum swings outside the box, definitely. I think it's important to state the history of how we got here. This is not this commission's issue, but the CVB was basically forced in 2009, at which we've rescinded that agreement, and then reemphasized in 2010 to have to do this. The CVB, again, is a tourism and is a partner with entities to continue to expand tourism. They're not an event organization, and that's the concern that I have here. How they even got involved is because you had commissioners that are so passionate about not this group, so involved with the county fair that they didn't want to go through the county procurement rules and basically said, "Hey, Joel, here's what you will do," and the body agreed. And so the history is important. I think the problem I have with this going there where it's an event, and I think you're a good partner, but this event to me is so unique. It's one that's very passionate for all of the commissioners and should always be a celebration of Utah County and continue to be so. The problem is when we put it in an entity like you, it becomes a business deal, and it becomes something that we do scrutinize. And to me, there's scrutiny and then there's budgeting. And to me, I don't think we should be limited in a celebration for Utah County. For example, if you put somebody in charge of it and looks at it and says, okay, I only have this budget, they may look at it and say, and cut, and it's been minuscule dollar amounts in what we spent. But Commissioner Ivey, upon his arrival, we've started a program where we've taken livestock to each of the cities and they've participated. It's been tremendously well received. But those are the kind of things that, even though it can be in a fair plan, when you start doing it with an outside entity, outside the county's control, because we don't really have control, and that's okay, but it's no longer protected and something that the county can enforce. And so those are some of the things that potentially, to me, get lost. The county fair has a long history. They've pulled it back, they've let it go, they've pulled it back, they've let it go, they've pulled it back, they've changed venue. It has a long history, and it's finally up and going to a direction it's going. So I don't know. I would like to see it stay within the county and the budgetary funds inside the county go, and that a position, that way there is more scrutiny from that side, and we hire literally an event planner. And again, that is so in opposition to how I spoke 2 months ago. But I do see the wisdom or the error in my ways on that, and would strongly suggest that we don't execute this agreement and bring that person into the county because there's things that need to happen right away. So anyway.
My position on this for today is sometimes you put a Band-Aid on because that's what you got in the medical kit. So we put this Band-Aid on and look at a viable long-term solution as we work through it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as I said, if with our involvement in the event, if this agreement is we go forward with it, we want to make it a celebration of the county, but a great event that will actually draw people in. I mean, our opinion right now is that it's a great event, but we don't know that people are planning their summer vacation around coming to the Utah County Fair. And that's who we focus on. That's in our wheelhouse.
Right.
But we think we can get there. We think we can do some things that might help that, because again, then it fits in our wheelhouse.
But see, that's why I'm saying to limit you on a budget. That's tough, because to draw people in for a celebration and show all the great stuff that happens in Utah County, that doesn't always confine in a budget, and that's the hard part. And that's why I say, and I appreciate, like Commissioner Ivey said, it is a Band-Aid for something that, He's very
Commissioner
passionate.
Graves, I appreciate you pointing that out. I mean, you've been involved with our organization as a board member, just as Commissioner Ivy is now, so you know why we are successful as an organization, that we've got very passionate people on my board that they want to see us succeed so that they will succeed. And everything we do is within their wheelhouse, and it's what we do. This is a little outside of there, but we think that we've got smart people, and we think if we get the right person there, that we can see the same type of success until we decide a long-term solution, like Commissioner Ivy said. So,
Perfect. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve an authorized agreement between Utah County and the Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau with the amendment of 60 days on there.
And a guarantee of the 250? Was that part of that?
No, that'll be worked out.
Until it's through the TRCC.
Well, okay, I need to back up then. So I'm gonna remind Commissioner Lee and have him help me figure this out then. At our last Tourism and Tax Advisory Board meeting at the Marriott, so not the last one, actually, the one before that, I talked about, why don't we take money out of TRCC and help for the county fair? And you said, I don't think we can. In fact, I don't think it's even legal potentially for the Freedom Festival. I don't think those funds can go there. So all of a sudden, how are we doing it? Because I know you went through a process.
I think that, I think there's a motion on the table, and we either have to get a second or something has to happen before we have discussion.
We can,
Well, I'm not gonna second it until, again, I want to support you guys.
I want to have that
Okay,
discussion. but
then
yeah.
I will second to move that for
Okay.
discussion.
we have,
So-
I have a motion and a
so-
second. I will now open it for additional discussion for the motion at hand.
So let's have that discussion,
Right.
because that was a concern for me.
Right, I know, and I know
went-
you would
and I
have
went to
resolved
Paul-
that.
I went to Paul and Ben, we were both in the same meeting talking about this, and I said, here's the conflict. We have said that we can't take money out of TRCC for this because it turns out to be problematic in that they're celebrations, local celebrations.
Right.
And we've had that discussion
Right,
back
right,
and
that's
forth.
why I'm,
And part of it shifted, and Paul, and you can come up and help with this or not, is that now we're moving this out of our control into another entity's control.
and that allows us to
and
do
which,
that.
which gives us some flexibility. It does not limit, though, I mean, it does not open it wide.
Right, it still has to meet those
keeps it-
restrictions.
It still keeps it in the proper bounds of
Okay.
what tourism is, but because we publicly own the facility as well, gives us a little bit more flexibility, but it's out of our control, which gives us
And that's why I say,
opportunity.
because you raised a question, I know you would have gone through the process.
I
That's why
did.
I wanted to
I did.
understand. Okay,
Yes.
fantastic.
Did I explain it all right?
Yeah, so this is Paul Jones from the Attorney's Office. Commissioner Lee asked me about this, and I said, I don't think it's a good idea to just kind of open the floodgates up. We need to go line item by line item and determine either one, if this is actually a tourism promotion expense, or if it's actually going to maintain or operate a publicly owned facility. So if we want to go line item by line item as the expense of the county fair and say, we're going to advertise in this place, that might be a tourism promotion.
Well, let me give you an example of why I bring that up. That board has contemplated, because we dabbled with a concert or a couple times, or whatever the event was, and the question was, can we use those funds for something like that as a tourism destination? And that's what actually spurred that conversation. So,
Exactly.
right.
Just to clarify, Ben Vinoy, Attorney's Office, with this agreement, the UVCVB agrees to abide by all of those laws. So when they put
No,
together-
I understand
Okay.
that. I wasn't worried from their standpoint. Yeah, no, I that question from Commissioner Lee was in my mind, and again, I know his processes, and so I hadn't had that chance to talk about him because it appears on an agenda, so you can't talk. So, okay, I'm ready to vote.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 11. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0.
I sense it's a Band-Aid.
And I would echo that same sentiment.
I think we all
We'll continue
have
to
had those
communicate.
discussions,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll now move to regular agenda item number 12, to adopt a resolution executing the First Amendment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement for joint and cooperative action of Central Utah 911. Dispatch, this has been continued. Commissioner Lee, I know you had some questions on this regarding representation, and hopefully they've been answered.
Thank you for the conversation. Ben, I know he was in my office. I feel bad. Sorry to keep you coming over and over and over on this. There was significant conversation on two issues. The first one was our representation on this board, which I think that's where you see this addendum. And the second one was that the facilities down there were county-owned and that they were being leased. And in essence, at the time of the leasing, we were looking at the county, which is the county, the county's function, which is easy for us as a county to say it's for the benefit of the county. Therefore, favorable conditions are okay. And now with the inclusion of Juab County, my concern was that those favorable conditions now are being supported by taxpayers for that favorable condition for another entity being Juab County and their residents, which gave me some little bit of consternation. You can speak to that. I feel pretty confident where we're at with that, but I still think that it should be addressed for the other commissioners' consideration. The second one, though, and I guess from talking with Rob too, that can also be addressed at some point, and I can't remember where it was, if there's some concern there. The second point, though, is with our this was set up where Utah County had, on a representative basis, more representatives on the board, potential more representatives if you can get them there, right? Fair enough. And then expanding this board. The concern was that in the interlocal agreement, it said that it was going to be governed by the bylaws. The bylaws can be changed by the board, in which if the board members, let's just say Utah County's outvoted, all the bylaws can be changed, and then and then the reason why this is sensitive is because we're in an association right now with UAC in which we feel this lack of representation based on our population size or input into the organization. So that's what this revision is about. The only question I'd have with it comes in that it says that Utah County would get three members or 3 directors, which I'm fine with. But what if the board increases to 100?
Let me address that if I
Then we
could.
raise their rent.
So let me address a couple things. First of all, as to the amendment that's before you now with the 3 board members, my understanding is that the balance of the board, the other cities are not in favor of that. They would not accept this addendum. And so what I've talked to Mr. Baker about this, and the suggestion is possibly taking the weighted vote language from the bylaws and putting it in here instead of the 3 votes. But I'm not sure if that will be acceptable or not to the other cities. But I know the provision that 3 members by the county is not acceptable. But putting the weighted language that you were concerned about having it in the bylaws, which bylaws can be changed over the objection of the county.
Which we've always had 3 members.
Over the objection of the county. We have always had 3 members. That's correct. But going forward, we would have 1 member.
I know,
and
that's part that concerns me is why removal from.
So if I might be able to address that, I'd appreciate that. My name is Ben Reeves, Chair of the Utah Valley Dispatch Special Service District. My wife and I are about to have our 3rd grandchild either today or tomorrow.
Wow.
We have 8 kids at home, 8 kids. 6 are off and about and 2 are at home. And of those 8 kids, 2 of them are married. And when they were little, we had a lot of control. We told them exactly what they needed to do. We set the parameters and whatnot. And as they became college students, we had less control. And now that they're married, we have influence, but we don't have control over their lives. I would venture to say that the Utah Valley Dispatch was originally a component or a department of Utah County. And Utah County had complete control, and the cities added to it. However, it has been a directive of Utah County to make that agency an independent agency. And as we have worked to make that independent, we have put ourselves in a position now where we have a brand new building on leased property from the county. We paid $150,000, so that as a prepaid asset for a 50-year period. And all of the entities have paid into and have proportionate ownership based on their populations and their call volumes. At the time that Utah Valley Dispatch was organized, Utah County was the largest entity. But as it stands today, you are the 11th largest in population and the second as far as call volume. Overall total, that puts you the 3rd largest in the county. And the question really comes back, well, why should Utah County have 3 votes versus Lehigh City that might maybe have 5, or American Fork that might have 3 or 4? The reality is the dispatch agency has worked extremely well and extremely efficiently. In the time that I have been on the board, we have never had a weighted vote at all. We've appreciated Commissioner Ivey, Commissioner Graves for your participation on the board, as well as Sheriff Tracy and Mike Forshee and Don Ney, and all have contributed to make a great organization. With the consolidation is important not only because it's a directive of the legislature and now a financial incentive from the legislature, but it's an officer safety issue and it's an economy within the government. With this consolidation and adding on Juab County and Nephi City, our officers in Santaquin, I know in South County, the whole South County channel, we all have connectivity and clear communication lines between our neighbors to the south. That is fantastic when you look at items such as the Corey Ride and the Greg, I'm sorry, I forgot his, Sherwood, who was, that incident that took place on our main street and then finalized in Juab County. Communication is of the utmost importance, and with this consolidation, you will have a $15,000 reduction and a 5.1% reduction of your overall fees because of the efficiencies that have been brought to bear. It is a great opportunity for us to showcase how good government can be run, and we invite you. One of the concerns that we have from our board is that we never get a quorum. We've really struggled to get a quorum of people there. Quite often, we're starting at 9:15, 9:30, waiting for a last quorum member to come, and that is because there's so many seats and people don't show up, and when we have to wait. With Utah County having 3 seats, if we don't have Utah County representation at that meeting, it can make it difficult and almost be disrespectful to the rest of the people who are there trying to govern the people's business. So I would argue that we are independent. We're standing on our own 2 feet. We are operating well, we're operating efficiently, and we invite you to participate at all times. But with that said, we are very willing to have a weighted vote, but as a board, we have come to the conclusion it doesn't make sense to set exact terms as far as 3 and 1 for other entities. So
I would only push back a little bit on that. When you say $150,000 for the land, let's agree that was significantly discounted by the county.
When we would, I guess, be very open to purchasing that. But then I guess my pushback...
Right, but had we ever purchased it there, we would have never done it. So my only pushback isn't, what you said is entirely true. I have no problem with that. But who maintains that building?
We do.
Doesn't Utah County Public Works
anymore? No, it is completely independent.
It's completely independent.
That was my concern, is because I'm like, as long as when we talk about the weighted percentages that we're all contributing the exact same for both as far as payments, then it's fine, right?
We are 100% independent. We don't have anything that ties into the county at this point.
I'm changing my mind because I think, there's a bunch of things that you said there that I didn't hear before we were talking about, little fine detail stuff. And so I appreciate you coming here. I know this was me that kind of pushed this whole thing through on an understanding basis, but I want to thank you. I do think that we probably should not just, I'm not even thinking Utah County, if we're 3rd or whatever in the way, or 2nd in ball column, I do think that we should have some sort of weighted system in there, and that would be protective of everyone that's in the organization. I'm not necessarily saying Utah County, but personally, I'm gonna back off from that, from some of the things that you said today.
Thank you.
I would just say, having been on the board for 2 years, I've loved the fact that it's moved continually towards more independence. The efficiency it operates with is excellent, and when we went through the addition of the county, I saw that as a way of actually reducing the burden and the strain on Utah County financially, an economy of scales, and providing better services. So that's why in those meetings I voted in favor of those changes and supported this particular change, because I saw it operating as its own special service entity with a significant fee reduction for us because of the efficiencies it's running with.
And I hope you understand that I'm tasked to look after Utah County's interests, and and then this one came at an odd time.
Sure.
It came at a time in which at UAC, we are in some struggle when it comes to representation. And so when this landed and I started looking at it, I all of a sudden had these flashbacks, PTSD, whatever it is, on some of the things that are going on there, and I'm trying to understand what's going on, so.
Just remember, we're the good kid, right?
that's
That
why
we're
we
not the
hate
one that gets
acronyms,
punishment.
UAC.
So.
Yeah, so this one came at a time. So is it in their bylaws right now for if anybody
Yes.
calls for a weighted vote, they can?
Yes.
That's what I understood. I want to make
It
sure
is.
that's still,
Yes.
are the bylaws written though? Because I don't know if they're totally written.
Well, the bylaws from UVD, we have Junior Baker here and Seth Perrins. Junior's our legal counsel and Seth is our chair, our treasurer on the board. It's my understanding that the bylaws are written
Mhm.
and they've just been adopted,
By
same
the board.
bylaws as UVD SSD.
Yes.
carried
Right, we
forward.
just adopted them last,
Okay.
Yeah.
at the meeting, whatever day,
So
Friday.
then, Rob, seeing the change, what's the actual action we would need to take
We'd
to
actually
accept
just,
theirs?
we'd just
If
actually
you're just gonna
adopt
approve the resolution approving the,
Number 12 is stated.
yes,
Okay.
the First Amendment interlocal cooperation agreement, you would not need the addendum if you're not gonna do that, so.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'll
If I may
entertain a
clarify
motion.
my-
I
Commissioner,
think
is that
we're
all right?
good. You can.
I'm going to
yeah.
quote Commissioner Anderson since I replaced him. When you've struck oil, you might want to quit. Go ahead, Junior.
You're welcome to speak, Junior,
I would
but I
just
think you've
indicate-
got an affirmative vote.
Yeah, all right. I just want to indicate in full answer to the question that the new entity has adopted the old bylaws and they carried over, so they are in place now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move then that we adopt the resolution executing the interlocal cooperation agreement without the addendum, as stated in number 12.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution is without the addendum. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. We've already taken care of 13. 14 went to consent. 15 was tabled. 16, approve and adopt a resolution amending and increasing the 2018 Utah County budget for the county general fund and various other budgetary funds, transferring unencumbered unexpended appropriation balances from one department fund into the other of the same fund. Is there any questions or further comment on this item?
We need to go to a public hearing on that item.
Okay,
Even though we don't have one noticed.
We do have one notice. It's at the top of the agenda.
I had that public hearing,
Public hearing.
but I held the public hearing already.
No, this is for the 18
Yeah,
amendment.
that's
is
what
the
we
public
held,
hearing.
because we didn't have one for 19. We already concluded the 19. That
Okay.
is the action we took already.
All right, well, I will go ahead and open up a public hearing for
At the
the,
beginning of the meeting, that's the public hearing we held.
Okay,
but I'll just go ahead and do one really quick because I can see we've got a lot of participants. I will open a public hearing for the amendment of the 2018 budget. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. All right, now we'll go ahead.
Coming up to speed?
No, she's not.
She's bringing us drinks. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I will carry 3-0. And now we will look at regular agenda item number 16. Are there questions to the?
Only if
item?
Deneen needs a new number for an amount. You good?
No, I think I'm okay. And I don't know if you want me to just briefly go over the changes that
Sure.
are included in
That'd be
here.
great.
The Wasatch Mental Health contract, they're changing their billing from annually to quarterly, and so we had 2 quarters that we're gonna need to pay. That's included in there. The changes for the public defender are included, and as long as their extraordinary costs for the rest of this year don't exceed the $59,000 that was on the sheet, then we're okay with the budget. We don't need to do any further amendments to the schedule.
Okay.
The sheriff's office also had a request. They had a request for extra revenue and expense, so 100% funded for Major Crimes Task Force overtime, and also a request for some additional wildland fire expenses. Those are both in the budget. And then there was a request for some corrections overtime, and then also some adjustments for wages and benefits. I went through and calculated it, and I could see that they were going to be over in areas, but they had other savings in payroll-related accounts that I think could cover most of that. So there's about $71,000 for wage adjustments, and then their programming charges. Neil Peterson said they were going to be over budget, so there were adjustments for that. So that's all the changes that are included in this
Perfect.
final
Thank
So the
budget.
adjustments are 1,048,463.
No,
that's
there's
what
an
I'm-
additional 59. Oh, no, never mind, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one
yeah.
million forty-eight thousand four sixty-three in the general fund, that's correct.
Perfect. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move then that we approve and adopt a resolution amending and increasing the 2018 Utah County budget as stated in this current schedule.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 16. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion will carry 3-0. We will now look at-
Gladly, hold on, gladly make this motion, move to approve and notice the cancellation of the meeting on December 26th, now that we've taken care of that.
Okay.
What? Second, definitely.
I have a motion and a second to approve regular agenda item number 18. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. We do not need 19 or 20. We do need,
I think it's my turn, isn't it?
21
Sure.
or 22.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set it, wait, maybe we
Right.
should let you do it since this is your last
Hey,
time.
it's your
Heavens,
last
no.
time.
Okay, I'll make a
We gotta
motion.
keep order.
Motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting to discuss the
Do we
character,
wanna strike
professional
the first
competence.
Do we want to
Oh.
strike 19 and 20?
Yeah, well, I was halfway through, I could always go
No.
back.
Sorry.
All right, I'll go back. Make a motion that we strike number 19 and 20 from our agenda.
Second?
Motion is second to strike regular agendas items 19 and 20. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry to 3-0.
I'll make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual or individuals at today's date at this location following the completion of our regular agenda.
Second?
Motion is second to approve regular agenda item number 21. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0.
Make a motion that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss the pending or reasonable imminent litigation at today's date at this location following the completion of our regular agenda.
Second.
A motion and second to approve regular agenda item number 22. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion will carry 3-0. There were no work session items submitted. Are there any general public comments?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take just a
I was
moment of
going
personal
to
preference.
actually-
Since this is my last meeting. First off, I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners. It really has been a pleasure to work. We have had disagreements, but to me, they're fun to work through, and we have. I appreciate the process going through. There's one particular employee that I'd like to admonish right now, besides Heather Lewis for today. And hopefully this is the way this county moves forward. Ryan McBride at the property tax increase came and spoke. He spoke so eloquently, peacefully, and matter-of-factly that if we can continue to do those things, I think it changed that whole tone for the property tax increase where we had residents who actually shocked Commissioner Lee and myself that have always spoken against taxes that said maybe we should. And I think if we deal in fact instead of hyperbole, I think we'll be very good going forward. I'd like to thank all the mayors also. But I've especially appreciated my time with the Sheriff's Department. I alluded to that during that. Jim Tracy and all of his chief deputies and all that staff, and including new Sheriff Mike Smith and those folks, tremendous people. Jeff Buman, he's not here today, but I'd like to thank him for his service, not only as county attorney for all these years, but as a military man. He has my deepest respect, and what an honorable man. Brian Thompson, so underappreciated for the work you do. Thank you for all you do. I think elections are interesting to go through, but at the same time, I think we shouldn't lose sight of all the good work that people do. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but great person. Chris Polson, Kim Jackson, Jeff Smith, all of you guys have meant so much to me. I'd like to thank Commissioner Ivey's thoughtful process in going through the property tax increase, having that discussion, and implementing the fourth quarter. I know some will say leaving while increasing taxes, what a legacy. I'm okay with that. I too, like Commissioner Ivey, spend many great nights wondering if I'm leaving the county in a better shape, and I feel like I am. But first and last but not least, I'd like to thank all of the employees of Utah County. You are tremendous servants. It has been my honor and privilege to get to work with you and get to know you. And I will forever trumpet the good work that you guys do. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Graves. Appreciate that. Appreciate your service. Seeing no additional public comment, we will go ahead and move into our closed session at this time.